Blog Talk Radio.
The Chiamo Afurakani Afuraitkaitnit. Neye EGUA Medinde Odwirafo Kwesi Nehem Ptah Akhan. Akwamuman Amaruka Atifi Mu Odwirafo. Odwiraman Mu. Greetings to all Afurakani Afuraitkaitnit people, meaning African Black people. Today is EGUA Day, Marketplace Day. My name is Odwirafo Kwesi Nehem Ptah Akhan. Odwirafo of the Akwamu nation in North America within Odwiraman, the purified nation Afurakani Afuraitkaitnit people in the Western Hemisphere. Yet I say we thank you once again for tuning in to the broadcast. We're going to open up the chat room. If you have a question or a comment and you're on the phone line, hit the number 1 so that we can see that your hand is raised. If you have a question or a comment and you'd like to interact in the chat room, you must log in with a username in the chat room. If you do not have a username, you can sign up for one quickly in Blog Talk so that you can interact. So first, a couple of announcements. We typically have 3 broadcasts on a weekly basis. On Joda Monday nights, we have Akhan Ancient Authentic Akhan Ancestral Religion, where we deal specifically with the Akhan expression of Ancestral Religion. Tuesday nights, Abinada, we have Ojira, where we deal with Ancestral Religion in general, in its varied expressions, not just the Akhan expression, but wherever we exist as Afurakani Afuraitkaitnit people in the world, wherever we have migrated on the continent, and those who have been forced to migrate into the Western Hemisphere, maintaining our ancestral religious tradition. That includes in North America, for example, the Akhan tradition in North America, the Hoodoo tradition. Juju is the Yoruba tradition in North America. Odu is the Fawn and Eve tradition in North America, and so forth. So we've maintained our ancestral religious practices born of the blood circle of our direct ancestresses and ancestors. Spirit genetic inherit, transcarnational inherit, inheriting the culture through the agency of our direct blood ancestors, and therefore we are born into the world with our ancestral religion and culture wherever we exist in the world. So we're not dependent on anyone outside of our ancestral blood circle to give us our ancestral religion. We are born into the world with that. And it is through that process of embracing our ancestral religious practices that we were empowered and guided to wage war against the whites and their offspring, exterminate them, establish our own sovereignty, and secure ourselves in that sovereignty and force an end to enslavement in the Western Hemisphere. So we talk about ancestral religious practices, purification of ancestral religion. So we talk about Ojira, which means purification. Nanasom is our term for ancestral religion. So Afurakani Afuraitkaitnit, or African ancestral religion, in essence, is the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance. That means through ritual we incorporate those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to incorporate in order to harmonize our thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order. And through ritual, we reject those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to reject in order to restore balance to our thoughts, intentions, and actions, and therefore realign ourselves with divine order. We engage in this process every moment of every day. So every thought, every intention, every action, every moment of every day is constantly being aligned with or realigned with divine order. That is the culture of Afurakani Afuraitkaitnit people. And our ancestral religious practices are the ritual means by which we incorporate law and restore balance, the expansive and contractive poles of ancestral religion. So we always say that Ojira purification operationalizes Nanasom. Purification operationalizes our practice of ritually incorporating divine law and ritually restoring divine balance to our lives every moment of every day. So this is what we talk about on the Ojira broadcast on Abinada Tuesday night, reading from text, from ancient texts from Kemet, Kanat, as well as the orature, the oral text of our ancestral religious traditions on the continent and wherever we have migrated or were forced to migrate in the world. showing how ancestral religion impacts every aspect of our lives, every moment of every day. So that's what we deal with on the Odwira broadcast. On Awukuda Akwada Wednesday night, we have EGUA Marketplace, and we talk about businesses, organizations, and institutions in our community who are serving the community in a positive capacity and who also maintain their ancestral religious values in the process. We have our Okon economic development model that we have published. It is an economic development model rooted in ancestral religious values. It is therefore a holistic approach to economic development. You can download that economic development model, the Okon economic development model, from our webpage, the Okon page on our website. You can download the 4-part series that we did on Blog Talk, dissecting that model and showing its applications to every aspect of our lives. But you will also see on that page the links to the various businesses, organizations, and institutions we have been supporting on a regular basis, weekly basis. And part of the Okon economic development model is to starve the beast and feed the pride. That is the strategy. That means on a weekly basis, we make a determination about what funds we would have potentially wasted with the whites and their offspring, and then we feast and feed the pride. We reallocate those funds away from those white businesses, direct them to the business, organization, and institution of the week. We target one business, organization, or institution per week for 52 weeks, and it's a continuous process for optimal capital infusion. So when you starve the beast and feed the pride, and you take the $10 or $15 you would have wasted at the white business, at Walmart or somewhere else, and transfer that capital to the business of the week, the Afuraitkaitnit business of the week, that's an infusion of $10. When 1,000 people engage that process, that's an infusion of $10,000 away from white businesses directly into the coffers of the black business, organization, or institution, which allows them within the process of 1 week to expand their businesses and services, their products and services to us, hire people from within our community so that they can serve us at a greater capacity. It's a win-win situation. If we do not engage that process, then by default, we leave that $10,000+ in the hands of the whites and their offspring, our absolute enemies, and therefore we are financing our own oppression by default. So we've starved the beast and feed the pride. We're going to put that link in the chat room real quick, the Okon economic development model. And we also have on the EGUA show, Marketplace show, talking about the cosmological foundation for ancestral approaches to economic activity, economic behavior, the social and political impact of properly structured economic activity and so forth. So we have shows dealing with that as well. And this show, as a matter of fact, actually fits within that concept. We've had a number of individuals ask about this topic. We've touched on it in different areas on different shows, and we have 219 broadcast archives to date. So in those various broadcasts, we've touched on these various elements in the past. We want to put them all together in one show so people can have a direct reference for that. And of course, we will publish certain information on that, and we'll publish some more as well. Before we go forward with the topic, coming up on March 20th is our Echisign Afuraitkaitnit African Ancestral Religious Reversion Conference taking place here in Washington, D.C. It is March 20th. That is the first day of the Festeo Bere, the quote-unquote beautiful time, as spoken in the Akhan language, the first day of spring, the equinox. It is an Kwesi. It is a Sunday, March 20th. Our Nishamu, or our conference, will be happening from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. We're going to place that link in the chat room right now. The conference is free and open to Afuraitkaitnit people, African black people only. We'll have a number of presenters dealing with various aspects of ancestral religious practices focused on ancestral religious reversion. We do not engage this notion of conversion. Conversion means you're trying to transform someone into something that otherwise they would not move toward, something artificial. We're dealing with reversion. The term Etchi sign in the language of ancient Kemet as well as the Akhan language. Etchi means back, sign means return. Etchi sign means to return back. We're talking about reversion, ancestral religious reversion, returning or reverting back to our original pristine state, firmly rooted in Inyamewa, Inyame, and Sheshe, or divine order, divine arrangement of the Great Mother and the Great Father. We're talking about reverting back to our ancestrally inherited spiritual tradition, our spirit genetically inherited tradition, our transcarnationally inherited tradition, meaning through our direct blood ancestresses and ancestors who guide us every moment of every day. They teach us our ancestral language. We bring that into the world with us as ancestresses and ancestors ourselves who have entered into the wombs of our mothers. We bring that ancestral culture that we have lived in numerous existences, lifetimes, and bring that back into the world with us, connected to specific abosom, orisha, voodoo, before we even enter into the womb, connected to a specific ancestral blood circle, matriclans and patriclans, before we are even enter into the womb. So when we are born, we are already assigned to forces in nature. We're already assigned to specific ancestresses and ancestors who guide us. We have a culture fully intact. So we simply need to engage that process of reversion, ancestral religious reversion, and recognize the culture that we have maintained here in the Western Hemisphere and restore that to its pristine state. So we'll have a number of presenters dealing with different aspects and expressions of ancestral religion, born of the blood circles of our people. We'll also have our EGUA marketplace vendors. You'll be able to shop all day long with the vendors, a number of different presenters. Again, it's a free conference, so you go to the Etchi sign page on the website. All of the information is there. We'll be giving away a free copy of our book, Etchi Sign, the Etchi Sign Journal, just as we did with the Hoodoo Nation Festival in October that we had here in Washington, D.C. Everyone who came out to that event received a free copy of our Hoodoo Mind Journal, the Hoodoo Nation Festival Journal. And we'll be giving away a free copy of the Etchi Sign NHOMA, the Etchi Sign Ancestral Religious Reversion Journal to everyone who attends the event. And we are in the process, we'll be printing out the softcover versions in that process this week. The book is just completed. And last week we just completed our most recent book, Kemet Hina Nsoro, the Black Nation and Divinity, proving that the term Kemet, talking about the Black Nation, can be found in the Akhan language with the exact same meaning, cosmological foundation, the same etymology and so forth, including the same symbolism of the burning piece of charcoal. We also talk about the origin of the term Nsoro, misnomer neter, the nature of divinity. That same term found in the Akhan language that we use every single day to denote divinity. The same symbolism of the Akuma or the Aku, the act associated with the divinity in the Akhan language, just as it is in ancient Kanat and Kemet. We prove that in the book. Why is it in the Akhan tradition when the abosom possess, the spirit enters into the body and they possess, the first thing they do is grab the Akuma, grab the act. And there you have the divinity, the abosom, and then you have them grabbing an act. The same symbolism that you see on the walls of Kemet representing divinity. The deity, the Ntoro, the abosom, the Ntoro, and they're sitting next to an axe or grabbing an axe and so forth. So we go into detail about that in our most recent book, Kemet, Hinat, and Toro, the Black Nation and Divinity. But at the conference, we'll have a number of different vendors. We'll be presenting on the Akhan tradition, Akhan Po Nanasom, ancient authentic Akhan ancestral religion. We have people presenting on the Yoruba tradition, other traditions. So you'll see all of the information, and we will be updating. We have at least one more speaker that we're going to add. Then we will place the itinerary on the page, but you can see all that information now on the page. So one final announcement, and we'll announce this, come on. As this is EGUA Marketplace, and we talk about economic activity from an ancestral perspective, rooted in our ancestral religious values, we just released last night a video, Odwirafo ne Odwiraman, self-employment option for Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, African Black people. So we have had our Nokwadefo option. Nokwade means truth. Nokwadefo means those people for or disseminators and upholders of truth. That is the title for our distributor. If you would like to become a distributor, meaning become self-employed, working for yourself independently as an entrepreneur, you can do so by distributing the soft cover versions of our books. Our books, we have 19 books that we have published to date. We have more books coming out. Our books range between $8 and $11. If you would like to become a distributor, you would not be working for us. You would simply be working for yourself as an independent entrepreneur, self-employed. You will purchase the books from us wholesale, and then, of course, you sell them to your friends, family, coworkers, those who you in your community retail. Because our prices range only between $8 and $11, then it's not expensive, and that's a bonus for your prospective customers. But when they see the information, the titles and so forth, and the information contained therein, the books sell themselves. They are drawn to the information. We just put out the video. We altered the price structure. So the wholesale price is 35% off of the retail price. So you purchase them for 35% off, and then you sell them for the entire price. When you go to the website, you will see that we have a new distributor information document, Kwadefo distributor information document. We also have the Kwadefo distributor information document, the video where we're talking about this information, the video we put out last night. We posted it to the publications page on our website. We'll put that link in the chat room as well. The NHOMA page, the publications page. And when you see that information, when you go to the NHOMA page, you will see our 19 books, the front covers of all the books. You can download the e-book versions of all 19 of our books for free. We make all of our books free online, the full version. But then those who would like to purchase the soft cover versions, we do print them in-house on our own printers in color. We do not contract that out to a third party. So we have our own printing operation in-house. We publish and print, and from beginning to end, we are in control of the entire process. This is self-contained. So if you would like to generate income, additional income, or just income, period, working for yourself, disseminating truth, disseminating information that benefits the community, but also benefits yourself as well, then we have that option. When we talk about Odwiraman, the purified Odwiraman nation in the Western Hemisphere, Oman, the purified nation, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people in the Western Hemisphere, as a collective, we must be able to meet the needs of Odwiraman, meet the needs of our people within our collective identity as a purified nation in the Western Hemisphere. One of the most pressing needs is economic development, economic activity. So if we're talking about ancestral nation building restoration, we must have options for any one of our people, males or females, immediately if they need to begin to generate revenue immediately. We must have an option. We shouldn't be saying, well, in a few years, maybe one day we'll have an option. We need to have those answers. And this is one of those programs that we have. Any of our people, notwithstanding your prior work history, you can begin immediately. You can begin tonight simply by going on the NHOMA page, the publications page, scroll down, and you see the various books. At the bottom of the page, you will see the Kwadefo, the Odwiraman video. You will see the Kwadefo distributor information document, and you'll see the menus to purchase the books at the 35% off price, and of course that includes the shipping, and that's automatically calculated for you, so you can purchase them at the wholesale price right there on the page. And as you're waiting for the order to be shipped, you can begin to read the ebook versions of the publication. So once you get the order and you have the soft cover versions, you would have already been apprised of the information, and when you go out and begin to sell and distribute, you will be apprised of that information. You don't have to memorize it all, but you will be abreast of the kind of information that you are transmitting to the people. So we transformed that. We changed the process. At first it was 30% off. Now it is 35% off for distributors for Odwirafo, and we put that new information out, and we just added the 2 new books. Previously, we had 17 books out. Over the past 2 weeks, we released 2 more books, and now we have 19 in total. So you can check that out. So that's part of this whole notion of EGUA marketplace. But since we're talking about marketplace, this is a good topic, and it's a good way to introduce some detailed information. And we call the broadcast Aforeboa Ne Aru, Animal Sacrifice, and the Ancestral Religious Community. Aforeboa, Aboa in the Akhan language means animal. Aboa, A-B-O-A, Aboa. The plural is Moa, animal. Afore means an offering. So Aforeboa means an offering that is an animal offering, dealing with an animal sacrifice. So Aforeboa, an offering, animal sacrifice, Ne Aru, the Ancestral Religious Community. We did a broadcast on Echisan and the Ancestral Religious Community, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, Ancestral Religion, AAR, the Ara or Aru community, the Ancestral Religious Community, dealing with ancestral religion from its firm foundation, from its purified foundation, of course, proper notions of nationalism, proper notions of Pan-Africanism, proper notions of revolution and resolution are inherent within that identity as Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people within the ARU, the Ancestral Religious Community. We did a broadcast showing that not only is it an acronym, AARU, the ARU, but also the term in ancient Kemet, ARU, dealing with the forms, the sacred forms of the ancestresses and ancestors in the spirit realm. Also, Ar or Ari, meaning to make, to do, to operate, to function, to form, to fashion, to create, action that's harmonious, and so forth. So this is what we're talking about. We want to talk about the nature and utility of the Aforeboa, animal used as offering or sacrifice in the context of ancestral religion. So we've had a number of people ask us this question very recently. Over time, we always have people who comes up every now and then, but we've had a number of people over the past couple of weeks ask us to do a broadcast on this information or ask where we talked about this information in different broadcasts, different publications, asking us to pull that information together. So it's high on the priority list for some people to figure this information out. So we need to bring a proper perspective of what sacrifice is, what offerings are. And sacrificial offerings are a subset offerings to the Abosom, the Orishas of Vodou, the deities, offerings to the Nananom Nsamampo, the Egungun, the Kubita, the spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors of our direct blood circle. What are offerings? What is the nature and function of offerings? There's nothing within Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit culture that's symbolic, that just represents something, that we're engaged in empty ritual where we're just doing something that's symbolic of something else. That's what the whites and their offspring do in their fake religion, with their fictional characters and fake God, like Allah and Yahweh, Jesus, Yeshua ben Pandera, Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael, Solomon, Sheba, Menelik, Moses, Aaron, Buddha, Brahman, all of these fictional cartoon characters who never existed of any form or of any race whatsoever. The whites and their offspring engage in empty ritual. We do not engage in empty ritual. When we engage in ritual practice, we're always in the process of receiving, processing, and transmitting energy in a measurable fashion, in a quantifiable fashion for a specific purpose. If we're not engaged in that process of reception, processing, and transmission of energy, then we do not engage in any form of ritual. It has to be quantifiable. It has to be functional. If it's not functional, we do not engage. In our book, UBEN-HYENG, The Ancestral Summons, deals with these various rituals of ritual song, ritual dance, ritual prayer, ritual incantation, idolatry, giving offerings, talismans, amulets, meditation, all these various different things, divination, these various different ritual practices that are brilliant, functional practices. One of them deals with offerings. One section in that publication deals with offering. So what is the nature of offering, if they're functional? And then we're going to get into, first we want to talk about shrines, then we want to get into the nature of offerings, and then that subset of offerings, which are Aforeboa, animal sacrifice. So first and foremost, when we look at people going to shrines, giving offerings, whether it's food or whatever it is, at the shrines of the Abosom, the shrines of the divinity, the shrines of the ancestresses and ancestors. We set up shrines within our home, set up shrines within sacred spaces, so-called temples, Abosom Thie, Abosom Dine, and so forth. Iles, Ile Orisha, Humfors, and various different structures. But those shrines are shrines in miniature. They carry the energy of a natural shrine in creation, the natural shrine wherein the spirits of the Abosom take up residence. So you have, for example, just like your physical body is a shrine for your spirit takes up residence in your physical body and operates through your physical body. The same is true for a plant, a physical structure that the spirit takes up residence in. And when the plant dies, the spirit separates from that physical body. The same with an animal. The physical body is a shrine for the spirit of that animal, and the animal operates through that physical body. Their spirit operates through that physical body until they die, and the spirit separates from the body. And the same, in reality, is true for mineral life. The physical structure of earth and different qualities and features of earth, different aspects of earth, they're spirits that animate mineral life. And then when their spirits separate, then that mineral life deteriorates and so forth. So, when we establish shrines, these are shrines in miniature that replicate and carry the energy of the natural shrine in creation, in nature, within which the Abosom, Orisha, Vodu, Ntoru, to take up residence in. What is the purpose of a shrine? And then once you understand the purpose of a shrine, then we can understand why we give offerings at a shrine. Once we understand why we give offerings at a shrine, then we can understand why we give offerings to the Abosom and the NHOMA and Samafo, the deities and the ancestral spirits at a shrine or other places as well. So when you have a shrine and you see people place food at a shrine or do certain ritual practices at a shrine, what is taking place? As we said, nothing is symbolic. Nothing is just empty ritual. As we've talked about in our previous broadcast, we have this notion of Da, and the term in Akhan, Da, means to multiply, to fill up, to magnify, and so forth. That term Da we can use as a descriptive of the function of a shrine. A shrine is a magnifying device. It magnifies the energy, the Tumi, the divine power of the Abosom, of the NHOMA, Nsamafo, the deities and ancestral spirits. If you are outside and the sun is shining and it's hot outside and there are leaves that have fallen from the trees and there are dry leaves on the ground, the sun is simply shining its light on the dry leaves and they are warm at best. If you take a magnifying glass and place it properly in a specific angle in between the sun and the dry leaves, when the sunlight passes through the magnifying glass, the energy of the sun becomes intensified, it becomes magnified, and what comes out of the magnifying glass can hit those leaves and cause them to begin to burn or combust. The sun has not changed its output. The sun is still operating according to the manner in which it was operating prior to you grabbing that magnifying glass. But what you did with that instrument, with that magnifying glass, is that you magnified the energy, the potency of the sunlight, the rays, concentrated that energy, transformed it into a potent unit of energy, and then caused a combustion of these dry leaves. When we establish shrines, when we have incesto, or idols on shrine, and those are shrines in miniature as well. Anytime you have a sculpture, an idol, and so forth, that is receptacle for the spirit of the Abosom, the spirit of the NHOMA and Samafo to take up residence in, just like your spirit takes up residence in your body. The shrine itself as well as the sculptures on the shrine. They are magnification devices, magnifying devices for the energy, the power, the tumi of the abosom. When we structure the shrines according to the dictates of the abosom, Obuade, or who is called Obuade in Akhan, and Ptah in ancient Kemet, Sakpata in Vodun, Obaluaye in the Yoruba tradition. He's the fashioner. So when you read the text, for example, of the Min-Nefer cosmology, so-called Shabaka text, so-called Memphite theology, and so forth, and they talk about great is Ptah, and he fashioned the shrines of the different divinities, fashioned their shrines in nature, fashioned their shrines in the temples, set forth their offerings and so forth, giving those specifications. He's a great fashioner of creation, fashioning the planets, sun, moon, stars at the core of the sun, the core of the earth, the core of all planets and so forth, constantly fashioning the thermodynamics operating within the core of the expansion and contraction of the energy of Ptah as he is fashioning, and Setchiman Sekhmet is there as well in that process. When he's fashioning the specific forms of the sculptures, of the shrines, the natural shrines in nature, and we follow the dictates of this divinity, showing us how to fashion a specific sculpture that is in the geometric pattern that resonates at the frequency of the divinity, of the abosom, and therefore they can take up residence in that sculpture because it's fashioned according to their dictate. And it resonates at their frequency. It becomes a welcome mat for them. They can take up residence in it and radiate their energy from that sculpture, or they tell us and show us how to erect a shrine, so-called altar, in a specific fashion, in a specific direction, with specific elements, so that it resonates at the frequency of this abosom, or of the Nananum Nsamapa. And therefore, it is a magnet for their energy. And they can come down and take up residence in that shrine temporarily to communicate directly with us. They are spirit. We have a spirit. We have a physical body. And when they take up residence as a spirit within a physical body, now there's a full communication. Spirit to spirit, physical structure to physical structure. We have a full optimal communication from spirit to physical when they take up residence in those shrines. Those shrines become, once they take up residence in the shrines and the sculptures that are on the shrine, now those shrines become magnifying devices for the energy of the abosom, and they become intensified. That energy becomes intensified at that focal point at the shrine. Just like the energy literally of the sun becomes greatly intensified when it moves through the magnifying device to the extent that you can make the leaves combust and catch on fire. This is what takes place. This is the technology of the Nkombre, the place or space, bere, of Nkom, spiritual communication, which is the term that we use for shrine. Nkombre, this is the technology of the Nkombre. We're not just setting up a space so we can get quiet and reflect and so forth. We're establishing a structure under the dictates of the abosom, of the orisha, of the vodou, of the nananum nsamampo, of the egungun, of the kuvita. When we follow that structure, then they can take up residence in the structure that we established and erected for them, and then their energy becomes magnified at that space. And then we can extract that magnified energy and utilize that energy for our benefit. And this is the reason why we have that kind of interaction, that interfacing, that kind of communication. So that is the purpose of the shrine. So now that that energy is magnified, then we go and give offering of food and mineral life and so forth, animal life at these shrines. So what are we doing when we know what the shrine is now? And then the energy is magnified and it's powerful. So it's radiant, it's emanating effulgence and so forth, exuding great power at this focal point. It's like a miniature sun radiating within the house or within the structure, or within the area where the shrine is. Now that energy is emanating, then we give offering. What is an offering? You give, for example, an offering of fruit or some vegetable. Each aspect of creation has its own energy complex. We have cataloged the various aspects of creation: plant life, animal life, mineral life, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, human life. We are children of different divinities. when we have a specific function in creation, some people, for example, when we talk about we are cells within the great divine body of the Supreme Being. Every cell in your body is part of an organ or organ system that carries its own energy and supports its own specific function. You have certain cells that are healing kind of cells, certain cells that are immune system cells that go out and kill. So, we are cells within the great divine body of the Supreme Being. All of the different systems within our bodies are reflections of the systems within the great divine body. People who are children of the divine immune system and lymphatic system within the great divine body are those people who are cells of those divinities, fiery divinities, so they have a natural inclination as immune system cells within the great divine body to seek out the cancerous criminal cells in the community, isolate them, kill them, eradicate them, and expel them from the community for the preservation of the communal body. Just like your immune system cells are naturally inclined because they are designed to seek out cancerous cells, other toxins and bacterium, isolate them, kill them, destroy them, and expel them from the body in order to maintain the divine order of the body. Anything that would upset the divine arrangement of the body, the immune system, lymphatic system cells eradicate. So when people are children of such a system within the great divine body, children of those deities that govern that system, children of Benna and Abenna, as they're called in Akhan, Ogun and Iyami Abeni in the Yoruba tradition, Heru Behudet, Heru Bedeti, or Sechima Sekhmet in the language of ancient Kemet and Kanat, and also the same title in Akhan as well, Sechima and Beda and Bedi and Beni and so forth. And you're children of certain divinities in that, for example, then you have that natural inclination towards immune system function, lymphatic function. You're naturally drawn towards martial functions, drawn towards military functions, drawn towards traditional policing functions, drawn towards the kinds of fighting and defending and so forth. You're naturally inclined towards those kinds of activities because you have that energy complex. So the same is true of the various other energy complexes all throughout creation. Every plant, every mineral, every animal, every Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit human being, and Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit human beings only are children of specific aboson, orisha, carrying those energy complexes just like every cell in your body is a child of the organ or organ system. And they are cataloged according to the energy of that organ or organ system. So now, if on a mundane level you become sick, there's a deficit in your nutrient balance within your system, electrolyte balance, your mineral balance, or wherever the deficit is. You're operating, maybe you're compromising your immunity because you're not getting enough sleep. You're not getting enough exercise. You're not consuming enough vitamins or minerals or whatever you're doing, or you're consuming products, whether it's smoking or drinking or foods or whatever, that's causing your immune system to become compromised in some combination thereof. So there's a depletion in certain vitamins and minerals, and you begin to suffer because of that. Then you are naturally inclined towards different aspects of nature, whether it's plant life or mineral life, to get those specific plants, those specific leaves, those specific minerals that you can consume so that you can restore that deficit and you can fulfill or fill in that deficit of whatever vitamin or mineral that you need, so you can restore balance to yourself. That's on a mundane level. When you have an imbalance in your spirit body, the emanations constantly exuding from you, you have an imbalance in the spirit body because you are operating out of harmony with divine order, and there's a deficit within the spirit body, just like there can be a mineral or vitamin deficit within your physical body causing you to suffer from disease. If you have a deficit spiritually, you're out of alignment with order. You should be operating every thought, every intention, every action in harmony with divine order, but you've fallen off track because of lust, misguided desire, malice, ignorance, whatever it is, pulled and being controlled by other people's energetic outputs and being lured by them, or being controlled because someone is parasitic, just like a parasite attaching itself to an animal. Spiritually, somebody's parasitic energy attaching themselves to you, and you're allowing that to happen, and they're pulling you off track, and there's this deficit in your spirit body, and you're trying to restore that energetic level so you can get back to normal, and you can repel these parasitic entities, repel these individuals and their negative thought projections and their negative behavior. You can repel misguided desires. You can repel discarnate ancestresses and ancestors, discarnate relatives and non-relatives who are seeking to influence you in a negative capacity, speaking to you through dreams. If you're a little bit receptive, even throughout the course of the day, you can, quote-unquote, hear voices, or you're getting insane kind of thoughts, or lustful thoughts, or ignorant thoughts, or perverse thoughts, or just misguided ideas and so forth, because you're receptive to these criminal-type deceased relatives and non-relatives, or just depressed, ignorant, self-destructive, deceased relatives and non-relatives, these spirits of your deceased ancestresses and ancestors who were misguided, ignorant, self-destructive in life, alcoholics and so forth, and when they made their transition, they're still earthbound, hanging around, discarnate, wayward, ignorant, self-destructive, depressed, and they're trying to latch on to you parasitically. And when you have these foolish ideas, or you have stress within your body, or you have these various different things going on, when you find out what's taking place, very often this influences from such individuals, or sometimes living individuals who are constantly projecting their ignorance and their perverse energy upon you, or conditionings within yourself, where you embrace foolish ideas, self-destructive ideas, self-hating ideas, try to incorporate that within your body, just like eating bad food and it causes a problem in your body, trying to take in self-destructive, discordant ideas, projections of energy, false information, trying to operate based on that. You create a discordance within your spirit body. That discordance within the spirit body deficit with regard to the energetic output of your spirit body, and now you're suffering spiritually. So then you go to the shrine and you invoke the Abosom, and they come down and take up residence in the shrine. The shrine now is magnifying their energy, and it becomes intense at the shrine. Then you go get an offering of food or plant life, mineral life, and so forth that carries the energy of that specific Abosom. If it's a red fruit connected to an energy of Abosom whose sacred color is red, or if it's a blue fruit, because it carries the energy of the Abosom whose sacred color is blue, because when their spirit moves through space, they generate a blue hue. When the fiery energy of the fiery Abosom moves through space, it generates a red, burning, or reddish, orangish energetic hue that you can see clairvoyantly, because that's the way they move and generate that kind of fiery energy. You get the fruit or the mineral that's connected to that divinity. This fruit is sacred to this divinity. This mineral is sacred to this divinity, because we've cataloged all these various things in creation. You get that specific fruit that carries the energy of the Abosom. You take it to the shrine and offer it to the Abosom. The energetic emanations from that fruit, just like when you have an aroma coming from cooked food and it wafts through the air, and if you smell it, then it can cause you to begin to salivate. That's a provocation of a response. It sets your salivary gland in motion. Some things can smell in a certain way that makes you nauseous. It makes you want to leave the room because it makes you want to throw up. That's still a provocation. When you have placed fruit or plant life, mineral life, and so forth on a shrine, and it carries the energy of the Abosom, the specific Abosom that you're dealing with at the shrine, then the energy being projected or emanating from that offering provokes the energy of the Abosom that has been intensified at the shrine, and that provocation causes them to respond and project their energy to you. It's no different than if you walked up to a lion that was laying down, or a pit bull, and they're just laying down very calm. But if you kick them or push them very hard, you just provoke their energy, and then they respond with a fiery response. You provoke them, and they respond. When you put fruit or any kind of offering that carries the energy of the Abosom, it sends out energy emanation. and you direct those energetic emanations through ritual prayer, ritual song, and so forth, that those energetic emanations provoke the energy of the Abosom who's taken up residence at the shrine, or the ancestresses and ancestors, the Unsamako who's taken up residence at the shrine. You provoke their energy. You're pulling on their energy. And then they respond. No different than a baby pulling on the breast of the mother. That's a provocation. And once the baby provokes the breast of the mother, then the response is a release of the fluid, the milk that the baby needs to restore its balance, its immunity, and so forth. So we provoke the energy of the Abosom by placing these fruits and vegetables and other offerings on the shrine. Similar to putting a magnet next to another magnet on the table and in the same polarity spacing, they will repel one another, but that's a provocation. They're pushing. It's an unseen force that's moving a physical, it's a provocation. If you flip them around, then you put that magnet there right there on the table and close enough to the other magnet, and they jump together. That's an attraction. That's a draw. You place these fruits, you provoke the energy of the Abosom, and then you also attract their provocation, that energy that was released through provocation, and you pull that energy out. You pull that energy into your system so you can restore that deficit, that discordance that was within your spirit body that came about through ignorance, and suppressing your energy through ignorance came about through lust, because you're misguiding your own energy output through lust, through malice, because you're suppressing or misdirecting your energy output through malice, or it's being sucked up because of a parasitic individual who's physically connected to you, or some discarnate parasitic individual. Whatever is taking place that's causing an imbalance within your spirit body, causing you to suppress your spiritual energy, causing an implosion within you. Just like physically, when you hold everything in because you don't know how to operate and you don't know how to manage your emotions, emotional energetic output, you can become implosive and self-destructive, or you can become explosive and explode and go off on everybody every other day. Or you can become implosive and depressed and implode and have stress and migraine and heart disease and everything else. In the same fashion, when you misuse your energetic output, the divine living energy of the Ba that's circulating through your spirit body, when you misuse your energy, it's not radiating from you in a harmonious fashion so you can operate in a harmonious way. You're constricting it. You're constraining it. You're forcing it in certain aspects of your body and causing disorder in other aspects of your body. It's being sucked on and parasitically pulled on by living individuals in your sphere awareness and activity, as well as discarnate relatives and non-relatives, causing you to have a disordered, discordant disposition. Then you go to the spirits of order, the Abosom, the Orishas, the Vodou, embodiments of divine order, so you can become recalibrated. You provoke their energy. They take up a residence at the shrine. The shrine magnifies their power. It becomes intense at the shrine. You give offerings when they take up residence, when they come down in your presence. And when you give those offerings, you provoke their energy, and then you magnetically draw their energy in so that you can restore order to your spirit body. So you can restore those deficits of energy within a specific aspect of your spirit body so you can think clearly, function clearly, and realign every thought, every intention, and every action with order. So that's the technology of the shrine. That's the technology of offering. And that includes specific animal offerings. So when we talk about animal sacrifice, it's not controversial in the Afuraitkaitnit community. It only became controversial because the whites and their offspring sought to make it controversial. Why did they seek to do so? What was the purpose? It's a political purpose. What is the political purpose for making this a controversy? Because sometimes it is used within the culture. Sometimes it is not used within the culture. Communication with the Abosom can be facilitated in some ways with animal sacrifice. But communication with the Abosom is not dependent on animal sacrifice. So you can go your entire life and never engage the process of animal sacrifice and communicate with the Aboson, the Unsumafo just fine. And then some people can do it in another way. Why did the whites and their offspring make this a controversy? The political implications. So the whites and their offspring began to invade our centers of civilization, waging war against our people for thousands of years and being killed for thousands of years, stomped by our people, our militaries for thousands of years. They realized that they were not strong enough after constantly invading, for example, ancient Kemet and Khanat for thousands of years and being defeated soundly by our people on a regular basis. They saw that the only time that they could gain any kind of traction through invasion is if our people were already in civil war with one another. Then the whites and their offspring could come in, join on one side, and ally with them to fight the other side. And if they allied with the right side and the other side got defeated, then maybe the black people who allied with the whites, the blacks would give them some measure of autonomy in a certain area of the society that they assisted them with. But of course, that was a foolish act on the part of our people. They should have just eradicated the crackers and continued to fight against their own people until they came to some resolution. But some of our people engaged that because some of our people became self-destructive, lustful, and so forth. The whites and their offspring recognized that's the only way they could gain a foothold in society. But they also recognized they still couldn't control our people. Because even if they gained a foothold in society for a short amount of time, our people would always seek to overthrow them and remove them from that pseudo-rulership. So it took them thousands of years to realize that the only way they could control our people, the only hope that they had, was to corrupt the ancestral religion. So they began to create fake deities, fake white deities, giving them names that were corruptions of names of deities from ancient Kemet, giving them a life story that was similar to the functions in creation that the deities manifest as they operate through creation. And they will place these fictional deities in a specific space like Palestine or Greece or Rome and so forth, and start giving them specific attributes, creating little sculptures and statues and saying these are the gods and goddesses and this is who we worship, and trying to force these fake deities upon our people. And the vast majority of our people never went for that. This is why it took thousands of years for them to force Christianity and Islam and Judaism and Hinduism and Taoism and Buddhism on our people, because most of our people did not go for that nonsense. So, but they started that process over a couple of thousand years ago. The Greeks and the Romans in a major way, and then they began to try to corrupt the different divinities. For example, Shamsu, Neferhetep Heru was corrupted into Shamsu and Jesus and Yeshua and so forth. Yeshua never existed. Yeshua ben Pandera never existed. Jesus, Isa, Iso never existed in any race or in any form. The deity Mu, Ha, Met, Ha, the divinity of the river. The northern river is Ha Met. The southern river is Ha Preset. Mu means water in ancient Kemet. Muhatmet is the waters. Mu of Hatmet, the northern Nile deity, the spirit that operates through the northern Nile that we have been invoking for thousands of years for abundance, for the swelling of the river so that the land would have abundance, giving offerings to that divinity in the river because the river is a shrine for that divinity, and we magnify the energy of that divinity when we give offerings at the shrine. Muhatmet, the river's water. Mu of the northern Nile divinity, Hatmet, was corrupted into Muhammad and said he was a white Arab walking around in Palestine who overran the country with Islam. He never existed. But this is how the whites and offspring began to try to manufacture character. But they also had to change doctrine. They recognized that they didn't try to change the doctrine. They could never maintain control over a nation that they invaded and they were the minority in. How are you going to maintain control over such a nation when those people can rise up at some point and crush you? If you can make the people believe that the fake God ordained you to come in and take over, then the people would fear that if they tried to fight you, they would be fighting the God. That's part of the corruption. But they also sought to write out reincarnation. We stand in the reality and recognize the reality of Bebra, of reincarnation, of rebirth. We have that direct experience. We communicate with our ancestresses and ancestors so we know exactly who they are. We're not dependent on theories, abstract nonsense, the stupidity of atheism, and other kinds of Negro nonsense. We communicate directly with our ancestresses and ancestors. We're not controlled by the minds of the whites and their offspring, but they sought to try to write reincarnation out of ancestral religion because they understood that they could write that out of ancestral religion and try to promote the idea that that does not exist and make our people believe we only have one life. And this whole notion of finality, like if somebody dies, that's the end of everything, and they're either going to burn in hell for eternity with a fictional little character under the ground, or they're going to worship some big white faggot on a throne in the sky for eternity. Our people saying these are the only two options, and death is a just eternal finality. One life, and then it's over. That makes people fearful of death because they only have one shot. If they make a mistake, then it's eternal damnation, all of this nonsense. So when you believe that kind of foolishness, and then you believe that the fake God ordained the people to come in, the thought of taking these people out, killing these people, and restoring order to your society becomes a fearful thought. Because the first thing you think is you're going against the God and you're going to be punished. The second thing you're thinking is if you go against them, when you die or if you get killed, you only have one life and you're going to burn in hell for eternity. That's pure foolishness, but that's what they sought to promote. And it took them thousands of years to promote that, and they're still trying to promote it. Many of our people have rejected that. Some of our people have embraced it. Many of our people are getting back to normal, reversion, etchisan, and rejecting that nonsense. But when you stand in the reality of Bebra, because you have direct lived experience, then our perception of life is full. We have a full understanding. When someone dies, they transfer from one phase of existence to another phase of existence, and there's still communication. So it's not this great finality. It's not the end of existence, the end of the world. Somebody makes their transition. They're no longer living with us and interfacing with us in the same fashion, but they have a new means by which they can interface with us. We pour libation, they can still come and communicate with us. Sometimes our ancestresses and ancestors will possess us, speak to us through dreams, speak to us through divination, possess us during ritual song, ritual dance, and so forth, spirit possession. They still impact the community every moment of every day. So we don't lose them. There's no finality. The transference of going from the physical world to the ancestral realm and back to the physical world and the ancestral realm, and people being reborn and ancestresses and ancestors. Every time a baby is born, this is an ancestor and ancestors returning into the world. When somebody transitions, they become an ancestor and ancestress, and we can still communicate with them. We can see where they are in the ancestral realm. We can even spiritually visit them through ritual practice, and they come through spirit possession to communicate with us. We have a totally different understanding, a real understanding, a full understanding of the fluidity of life, the transference between the physical world and the spirit realm. So talking about killing is not the end of the world. Killing is not some evil thing. In fact, killing is divine. Killing is sacred. We have this process whereby you can kill to get yourself in harmony with order. You can make a sacrifice and kill something in order to restore balance to your life. Kill something or someone to restore balance to your life or to the community. Kill the enemies of our people so that you can return to divine order. The way you get yourself back in harmony with the great God and the great goddess Inyamewa Inyame is to kill, massacre your enemy. Somebody trying to control our population, control the country they invaded. The whites and their offspring could not have us in their estimation, believing and recognizing the reality that if we kill them, then we receive the blessing of the great God and the great God. They have to make us believe that killing itself is evil. They have to put that notion out. Thou shalt not kill or do murder and all this other nonsense. Because you can't have people who recognize killing can be a sacred act, not only a sacred act, but a sacred obligation or responsibility. It is our responsibility as Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people to eradicate, exterminate, kill our enemies who are trying to murder and oppress us. And if we do not do that, we will stay out of harmony with divine order. So through that killing, we get in harmony with order. You can have, in their estimation, you couldn't have our people believing and recognizing that reality, because you could never control people when every moment of every day they were plotting to kill you, and they knew that if they kill you, they get back in harmony with divine order. And if you happen to kill them in the process, they didn't care, because they know their spirit will leave the body, go back to the ancestral realm, live with the ancestors and ancestors that they like and love anyway, and they will be reborn and return back into the world, wage war against the cracker again and kill the cracker again. So when we understand the fluidity of life between the physical world and the spirit realm, we have a totally different perspective, a real perspective of killing for divine order, killing to restore balance. So now we get to sacrificial offering with that understanding, with the understanding of the shrine, magnification, the understanding of giving food offerings, mineral offerings, and so forth at the shrine to provoke the energy of the abosan. Those offerings like magnets provoking the energy and then receiving the energy. Those food offerings specifically chosen, these mineral offerings, plant life specifically chosen because of their structure. They carry the energy of that specific abosan, so that specific offering you're giving, so you can provoke the energy of that abosan with that instrument, that food offering, mineral offering, plant life offering, that instrument to provoke their energy so that you can receive the energy that's received from that provocation, so you can restore balance to your life. Understanding all of that, animal offerings fit in the same process. There are some animals coming into the world. For example, when you see a lion killing a gazelle, so they can eat and consume the animal so they can fuel themselves, that's in harmony with divine order. They are not quote-unquote savage beasts, and that's why they're killing. They're operating in harmony with divine order, the way that they were fashioned by the Supreme Being. They are supposed to kill in order to sustain their lives. Killing leads to that sustenance. That's divine order. So, when you see that, and you see that they utilize the animals, strengthen themselves, they sustain themselves. Now, our people, we haven't always been meat eaters, and still even today, we're not in reality meat eaters. Even those who are quote-unquote meat eaters are really not carnivores. There's a difference. So when people talk about vegetarianism and veganism on one hand, they talk about eating meat on the other hand. They're utilizing the arguments of the whites and their offspring. They're not talking from an Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit ancestral religious perspective, which is a whole perspective. They're like, either you should be a vegan or you're going to be a meat eater. If you're a meat eater, then you're trying to consume the same way animals do. And then they start talking about the animals have the shorter, intestinal tract, and they have fangs and everything else that allows them to eat meat naturally. And we don't have that, so we're not natural meat eaters. Of course, that's true. But at the same time, even when people are eating meat, they're not doing the same thing that animals are doing. They're not just biting into an animal and consuming the flesh and the blood and sometimes the bone. What they're doing is transforming the flesh of the animal into that which is a vegetable or even a mineral through the ritual use of fire. Now, I said we haven't always been consumers of meat. We are natural vegetarians, vegans, just like gorillas, just like elephants. They're big, they're strong, they're powerful, they're healthy, and so forth, and they are vegetarian. They're not walking around with skillets making entree. They're vegetarians, and we're naturally vegetarians as well. We didn't walk up one day and see a tree in Afuraitkaitnit with a skillet hanging off of the tree and a spatula, and we're like, oh, maybe we need to use this. This is natural. We're natural vegetarians. But we began to learn how to cook food. Where do we learn how to cook food from? When they talk about the abosan, taught us how to utilize and cook and domesticate grains and cook and so forth, utilizing the ritual use of fire. We learned that from the Abosom when they possess our people and show us through a ritual process, because cooking is a ritual process. It's the making of medicine from food. What it's doing is, in reality, it's the ritual consumption of fire. It is the means by which we take the fire energy of Ra and Ra'et that's moving through creation. It is magnified in the food itself. The food becomes a shrine. It becomes a container of the fire of Ra and Ra'et. And then when we eat the hot food, we can consume fire. It's a means by which we can facilitate the ritual consumption of fire. When we take that fire into our systems, it stimulates our body. It's no different than you take medicine. If you have some inflammation and you take some ginger, which is a fiery root and it's an anti-inflammatory, and you're utilizing that ginger to provoke the immune response within your body. When we use the ritual use of fire to cook, it leads to the facilitation of the ritual consumption of fire. So we can consume that energy of the Abosom, and it transforms our systems from within. It also stimulates the shrines of the fiery divinities that exist within our organs and organ systems. Some of our organs are more fiery organs like the heart and the lungs. Some are more cool organs like the pancreas and the spleen and so forth, and they're governed by different divinities. The fiery organs are governed by fiery divinities, and we give fire to them. When you eat cooked food, you're giving an offering of fire to the shrine within your body that's governed by the divinity of fire within the body. This is what we're engaged in the process of. When we eat other kinds of food, we're giving an offering to the different aspects of our body. Every organ and organ system in your body is a shrine for specific divinity. So when you give food, whatever kind of food that you're eating, you're giving an offering to that divinity every time you consume. And those nutrients are being sent to the different organs. It's no different than walking up to a shrine and putting food on the shrine. You are utilizing that food as a provocateur, in that sense, of the energy of the Abosom. That's why it's important to pay attention to the kinds of foods you eat, because you're placing those foods within the shrine internally of the Abosom within your body. So we haven't always been cooking food. We learned how to cook food from the divinities when they possessed and showed us the ritual consumption of fire and the ritual use of fire to transform that physical flesh from muscle tissue with blood and everything else to something, if it gets totally burned, if you put it on the fire, broiling meat and so forth, and it burns all the way to a black crisp, a hard black crisp. At first it was flesh. It was the lamb's thigh and so forth, but now it's burned to a black crisp. The ritual use of fire transformed the flesh, the leg of the animal, back to a piece of carbon, transformed it from a flesh to a mineral. And halfway through the process, before it got all the way burned, it was closely in structure to a vegetable. So the ritual use of fire transformed the quote-unquote meat back to vegetation and eventually back to carbon, a mineral life. It goes from animal life to vegetal life to mineral life if it's totally burned. So we're still not, in reality, meat eaters, because we're engaged in the ritual use of fire. So we have to look at these things from an ancestral perspective. Now, we, in our organization, we are vegan, but we're just giving this example of what's really happening so we can properly analyze what's really taking place when we're talking about these different issues and not just falling into these camps set up by pseudo-spiritual vegans in the white community, and then we just mimic what the white vegans say, blacken that up and say this is what our people have been doing all along. We don't just imitate them. We have dietary taboos that are associated with our bosom that are connected to our blood cells. We have dietary taboos that are associated with ancestresses and ancestors and matriclan and patriclan that are connected to our blood circle. Whites and offspring don't have that. So they'll tell you, hey, you can eat this food, it's good for your liver. You can eat this food, it's good for that, good for this. Our ancestresses and ancestors say, no, this particular group of people, you can't eat that food. It's dietary, it's a taboo. It will put your energy in conflict with the kind of energy output that should be free-flowing from you. because that's not the kind of energy you operate under. Even though it's a vegetable or it's a mineral and so forth, this is not the vegetable or mineral that you need to consume on a regular basis or typically at all. However, if you become ill, it may be that one vegetable source or mineral source that once you use it in a ritual fashion can counteract some discordant energy coming from you and repel that and bring balance to you and bring the balance and restoration of healing and the alleviation of those disease symptoms as well as the cause. So we have a number of different things going on when we're talking about the ritual use of fire, the use of food as offering, consumption of fire ritually, consuming the food, sending it to different organs and systems within the body, which are shrines of the deities within the body, knowing what kinds of foods to put in the body and so forth. So when we understand that, and we understand that we originally were vegans and so forth, eventually we learned about the ritual consumption of fire, so we began to cook vegetables, cook mineral life and so forth, including that within our diet through that process. At some point, some people began to consume animal flesh, but they took it through that ritual consumption of fire. When they engaged that process, they learned about the killing of animals for, on one hand, to take them through that ritual consumption of fire to consume, but then on a ritual side, some of our people let the animals die, and once the animals die, then they cook the flesh as the fire released the energy of the animal, and then utilize that energy that was released through the fire for a ritual purpose, to restore balance and repel negative projections and so forth. Some people, instead of waiting for the animal to die, they would kill the animal. Once that killing takes place, there's a release of energy. There's a rush of energy. Just like if you pop a balloon, the energy rushes out at first. If you can capture that rush of energy and redirect it and use it for a specific purpose, this is what's happening when people engage this process of killing an animal. Number one, there's a release of energy. That release of energy, that explosion of energy, when the spirit separates from the body, they capture that energy ritually and redirect that explosive energy towards eliminating some energetic obstacle in their way. At the same time, when the spirit of the animal separates from the physical body, recognize we understand the reality of Debra reincarnation. We communicate with the spirit of the animal once it separates. In the Akhan tradition, for example, when an animal is killed in a way, even just through hunting or just out in nature in the forest, or quote-unquote accidental killing or misguided killing and so forth, there are rituals that take place when people give offerings to the spirit of the animal so they won't become an angry spirit called a sasa spirit. Because if the spirit of the animal becomes a sasa spirit because they're angry about the way that they were killed, then the spirit of the animal will attack you. And just like a magnet, you can feel magnetism push you. You can feel the magnetism of someone. If you're standing next to someone that's staring at you, and you're in line, you can feel them staring, or you can feel the energy of someone projecting towards you. The spirit of the animal still has energy. They still have projection. All it takes is a slight push from that electromagnetic emanation coming from the spirit of the animal, an angry animal. All it takes is a slight push, just like the magnets pushing one another across the table, for you to be pushed to make one step to the left instead of making one step to the right. And then you step on something that drives a thorn or a spike through your foot, or you trip over something and then you die. Or you get pushed towards another animal that otherwise couldn't reach you, and then they attack you. Or they cause, all different kinds of problems spiritually, coming to you in your dreams, coming to you in different ways. But you give an offering for that sasa spirit to appease the spirit of the animal. The animal is at peace in the spirit realm, and then you can move forward and operate within the forest. You see people giving offerings in front of trees, as well as to the spirits of sacred animals and so forth, so they can move around in the forest, extract what they need to extract from the forest without upsetting the balance in the forest and the spirits that are still living in the forest. Some of those spirits are spirits of animals. Some of those spirits are spirits of human beings who died and they have taken up residence in those areas. So there's a cosmological foundation. When you kill anything, there's a release of energy. Kill a plant, kill an animal, kill a human being, there's a release of energy. That first release of energy can be captured and redirected and utilized for a minimal purpose. But then, if you can communicate with the spirit of the entity you just killed, for whatever reason that you have that you need to communicate, and if you can actually incorporate that individual's assistance, whether it's the assistance of an animal, because people will direct those animal spirits just like they directed them here on Earth. It's like people can make an elephant, carry them around, and they're riding on the backs of elephants, like Hannibal riding on the backs of elephants to take over Rome. People riding on the backs of elephants or sitting on top of lions and so forth, and it's not always because they're torturing the animal. Sometimes they're developing a relationship with the animal, the horse, the lion, the dog, the elephant, whatever it is, and there's a relationship that is forged, and then they work in harmony with one another. In the same fashion, when that animal dies, the person can still communicate, the ritual specialist can still communicate with the animal. So it's not just the release of the animal spirit, an explosion of energy, which can be captured and utilized, but also communicating with that spirit of the animal to ask them to do specific things. Just like you ask your dog to go get this and bring it back to me, or go catch a frisbee and bring it back. In the same fashion, go attack this person. Send the spirit of the animal to go attack, just like you send a pit bull to go attack somebody, and then they come back and you pat them on the head and give them some food or something like that. Send this animal spirit to go attack and come back. Some people are engaged in that kind of interaction. So these are the different things that are happening with regard to animal sacrifice. They're utilizing, number one, the explosion of energy that is released, capturing it, utilizing it to provoke energy or restore some energy deficit within their own spirit body, or some people utilizing it in a negative way to attack some other people or create spiritual disturbances within the spirit energetic body of the person themselves. Or they're communicating with this animal spirit after the killing and so forth, because for us, the killing is not a finality. It is a transference of energy and a different relationship that is taking place. The spirit of the animal is no longer operating within the physical body of the animal. Now it's operating in the spirit realm, and they still communicate just like they were communicating when the animal was here. So the release of energy is one thing, and the redirection of that energy to erase a specific deficit within the spirit body, just like you do with the fruit and so forth, but then also the communication with the animal itself. Now, once people began to consume animals, then that became more popular. Why did it become more popular? Because people were consuming animals for food, just like lions and tigers and everything else consume animals for food. We started cooking and so forth. So we were killing animals on a regular basis, and then, preparing them for meals, but prior to the meal, engaging in a ritual process with the spirit of the animal to affect a specific result and ask the animal to do this or do that. And then at the end of the day, they were going to serve the meat of the animal to the people anyway. So you have an initiated priest or priestess ritually killing the animal, all dressed in white powder on the body, praying to the spirit of the animal, praying to appease the spirit of the animal, not just grabbing any specific animal, any one that they see, any cow or any bull and so forth, or sheep or ram, but the specific animal they communicate with, and this specific animal is in agreement with regard to, yes, I will move forward to the other side to assist you in what you're trying to do. Just like there are some human beings right now, they see a war going on, they see their people need to be, quote unquote, saved, and people are being shot at, and they will step in the line of fire to protect children, protect women, protect other people. They know they're going to get shot up, but they know at the same time their people are going to be able to escape. So they will put themselves in the line of fire because they know, number one, they're protecting their people. Number two, when their spirit separates from their body, they're going to go to the ancestral realm anyway. They'll still be able to communicate with those people, and they will reincarnate through that blood circle and return right back, eventually, through the blood circle and come back to live amongst the people once again. So they put themselves in the line of fire to save their people, rescue their people. At the same time, that kind of act is remembered by the people as an act of being a valiant act, being something of bravery, of something of intelligence, and it becomes a model in which people need to emulate. It gives them courage, it gives them bravery, it gives them strength to move forward and attack the enemy and not fear death. So it benefits the community immediately, it benefits the community long term, and it also benefits the individual because they have strengthened the community. So when they reincarnate through the community, they will reincarnate through a body, a vessel of people who have been trained on that level of morality that they instilled while they were living here. And through their actions, they instill within the people. So they'll be reborn a generation or two later into a community that's much stronger, more resilient because of the work that they did and the way that they sacrificed themselves. In the same fashion, you have certain animals and sacrifice themselves for that greater purpose that you're asking them to sacrifice themselves for. Just like you communicate with human beings, we communicate with the spirit of animal totems, sacred animals, and so forth. We have animal totems, and they're sent by the Abosom, sent by the Unsamampo to communicate with us and bring us a message and so forth. We've been doing this for thousands of years. So we can communicate with specific animals. We can find out which one is the one that is to come forward and make that sacrifice and go to the spirit realm, whereas all of the other ones in their group, they're like, no, I'm not the one. Don't come over here. Don't kill me because I'm not down with that. Spiritually, they're going to be that kind of Sasa spirit if you kill them, and they're going to attack you and cause a great deal of problem. These are choices, just like a human being can make that choice. If you see a dog trying to protect its owner, or see a dog trying to protect a little kid, when they see another animal running towards the little kid and they've grown up in the house with the little kid, and then they go and jump in front of that kid, or they see some adult person trying to come and attack the child, the dog jumps in front of the adult, even though the adult has a weapon, and they start barking at the adult and trying to attack them to protect the child. They're putting themselves in between. They're protected. They don't have to do that. What makes them inclined to go and protect the human child? Because they have a spirit. They have a relationship, and some of them will put themselves in between to protect the human child that's not part of their family, not part of their species, and so forth. We communicate with the spirit of animals. We find out which ones are the ones who would engage us and develop a relationship with us. Not only so we can ride on the backs of elephants, but which one will say, step forward and say, not only can you ride on my back, I will step forward, naturally inclined towards serving the purpose that you would like to serve in the same fashion. This is what the animals do. So that's, in reality, a choice. The whites and offspring don't understand these kinds of choices. They relegate animals to brute beasts. They don't have the relationship with animals that we have. They don't understand how sophisticated, quote-unquote, animals actually are. So some will step forward and put themselves in that position. Just like they'll jump in front of a larger human being trying to attack a smaller human being to try to defend them, even if they get killed in the process. They will step forward if we desire for them and provoke them to step forward to utilize their energy for another purpose. But as we said earlier, that's after we began to learn the ritual use of fire. We began to eat meat and so forth. We were cooking, eating animals on a regular basis, and the sacrifice is different than today. Like today, most people do not kill animals. They never see animals getting killed. When you see a ritual specialist all dressed in white with white powder and so forth, praying to the spirit of the animal, asking which of these animals, which of these sheep, if you have 20 sheep, one of them is the one that will step forward and get in harmony with the individual, develop a relationship with the individual, and say, I will move forward to the spirit realm to serve this purpose that you desire for me to serve. The other 19 are against it, and they're moving away from it, and they will be the kind of Sasa spirit who will attack you if you try to kill them. So you do not touch them. You deal with the specific animal who's ready for that. This is why in ancient Kemet, when they're looking at all the different, they're talking about the sacrificing of animals, and they're looking at a sacred bull, and they have to have a certain color and a certain design on the body, and they have to have a certain level of ritual purity, or else they're not accepted. What they're talking about is communicating with the spirit of the animal to see, is this one of the kinds of animals who will move forward and, quote unquote, allow themselves to be sacrificed for a greater purpose? If they're not one who is willing to do that, then you do not move forward and engage that process, because now you're engaged in murder as opposed to killing and so forth. But going back to that whole notion of the ritual specialist in white, praying to the animal, communicating directly with them, finding out who's who amongst that animal population, who is willing to give themselves as a sacrifice and willing to move forward to the spirit realm for that purpose and maintain a relationship with the ritual specialist once they go to the spirit realm. All of these things are taking place amongst when we're dealing with sacrifice. But in the quote-unquote modern contemporary world, every person who's a meat eater in America and all around the world, they typically don't see the killing and slaughter of animals. There is a person, however, who's dressed in white with a knife who's killing the animals, but they're a butcher, and they're in a slaughterhouse, and they're just slaughtering animals wholesale, putting them on conveyor belts, injecting them with all kinds of chemicals to preserve the color of the meat after the animal is dead, and all these other things, torturing the animals, all kinds of things. So you're dealing with an uninitiated priest dressed in white who's just slaughtering animals, notwithstanding how the animals feel about anything, and destroying their bodies and poisoning them, and also you being poisoned yourself. Whereas you have another group of people, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people, who kill animals on a regular basis every day just to eat, killing goats to have goat soup, killing so-and-so. This is part of their everyday life, no different than a lion or a leopard and so forth, killing an animal to eat. So since they kill animals to eat on a regular basis, every now and then, once a month, once every other month, once every 3 months, before they just kill the animal and make the food, they pray over the spirit of the animal, ask the animal to engage them in a process, in a relationship. So once their spirit separates from the body, they still have that relationship. They sacrifice themselves for a greater purpose. So that is a convention that was developed after we became meat eaters and learned the ritual consumption of fire. As we said earlier, you can live in harmony with divine order without engaging in animal sacrifice, but you can also utilize that process as well. It depends on what your function in the world is and what your abosom, the insamako, direct you to do the embodiments of divine order, the abosom, the orishas, the voodoo, and so forth. It depends on where you're at, how you're functioning, what your life is, what your lifestyle is, how you're interfacing with that region of the earth mother where you're at. All these different things come into play. But it's not these hard and fast camps. This is a convention that developed. Ancestral religion incorporates that convention, but it's not dependent on that convention. Just like there are certain people who will sacrifice themselves and stand in the line of fire in order to protect some other people. They don't have to do that. They could choose, I'm not going to stand in the line of fire, I'm just going to shoot. If I get shot, I get shot. I'm going to encourage everybody else to shoot as well, and whoever gets shot, they just get shot. But then some people may say, no, I'm going to stand in the line of fire and let the other people escape. And that's going to result in them escaping, reconstituting themselves, and maybe they'll have a better chance, and I'll just pass into the spirit realm, but I'm going to be back anyway. That is a convention. That's a decision. It's not absolutely necessary. They could have taken a different route if they wanted to, but they chose to take that route. And since they chose to take that route, it worked out for them. But it didn't have to be that route. They could have taken another route. A specific animal, if they decide they're not going to take that route, spiritually they're repulsed when you spiritually move towards them and try to coerce them and ask them to come into this specific relationship. If they are repulsed by that and they communicate that through their spirit to you, then you know this is not the animal that you need to engage with. In fact, you need to search your own spirit to see, do you need to be engaging that with any animal at all? not just because someone told you to kill an animal, but you need to be communicating with the spirit of the animal. Not just because someone did a reading and said, oh, and this Odu Eshu needs this specific goat and so forth, and that's what it is. That came into being when people were actually communicating with the Orisha, communicating with the Abosom, Nsamafo, Egungun, and so forth. You don't just follow along. This is not Christianity, Islam, following some little text. You can get guidance from text, but after you get guidance from Odu, guidance from texts and readings and so forth, then it is incumbent upon you to communicate directly with the Orisha, directly with the Egungun, directly with the Abosom, Nsamafo, Bodu, Kubito, and so forth, and directly with the people you're going to interface with, the plant life you're going to interface with, the animal life or sacred animal totems you're going to interface with to confirm what you've been told. If you cannot confirm what you're being told, you do not need to engage in anything. We're conditioned to believe we can't communicate with anything, so we just truncate our capacities and our spiritual potency to be able to engage in these kinds of communication. Because we've been told, oh, you can't do that. There's only a certain group of people who can communicate with the spirit realm, so you can't do anything. You just follow up. That's nonsense. So we engage in direct communication, direct confirmation. So the key here is you need to understand the nature of shrine as magnifiers of the energy of the Abosom. We establish those shrines according to the dictates of the Abosom themselves. And therefore, when we those shrines and erect them according to the dictates of the Abosom, the forces of nature, and the Nsamafo, then they take up residence in those shrines, in our homes, and in the places where we establish them, sacred spaces, as well as in nature. Then when we go to these shrines to pray, engage in ritual song, ritual dance, ritual prayer, ritual incantation, as well as other ritual practices, giving offerings and so forth, then we utilize the offerings that they have cataloged that are part of their energy complex, part of their energetic family. We utilize those offerings, food offerings, plant life, mineral life, and so forth, to provoke their energy, using these offerings of food and so forth, mineral life, as instruments to provoke the energy of the Abosom and receive the energy of the Abosom so that we can restore and restore balance to our spirit bodies and eradicate some deficit that has manifested within our spirit bodies so we can bring balance to ourselves, healing to ourselves. In the same fashion, we have that capacity to communicate with animal life, and if this is a specific animal who is willing to move forward and engage that relationship with us now and in the spirit realm afterwards, then that specific animal will engage that relationship. If they are not, then you do not move forward. That's the basis of that kind of activity. That's the basis of that kind of relationship. So there are a number of things that revolve around that. There are a number of ramifications that if you're not rooted soundly in the culture, you will not be able to perceive. You simply obey what people are saying. As we said before, animal sacrifice is a convention that has developed, but the culture is not dependent on that convention. Just like there are certain kinds of drums that have developed, certain kinds of ritual instruments that we've developed as conventions. They can be used, but what if we don't have those specifically carved, beautifully carved drums? What happens when we're enslaved and forced into North America? We escape from some plantations. We don't have beautifully carved drums that we used to use on the continent, or beautifully carved iron gongs that we used on the continent. Does that mean we can't practice religion? Of course not. Those are conventions, and they have utility, but if we don't have that, we're not dependent on that. We communicate directly with the Abosom, and we can re-establish these conventions, these beautiful structures that we utilize to communicate with the Abosom and so forth, and fancy shrines. We can do whatever we want. We can be creative, innovative, and all of that. But the key is direct communication with the Abosom, direct communication with the ancestresses and ancestors of our direct blood source, living in harmony with plant life, animal life, mineral life, and Afurakani, human life only. Understand what offerings are, including the convention of animal sacrifice offerings, specifically after we became, quote unquote, meat eaters and were killing animals on a regular basis every day to eat anyway. Then the convention came forward after that, killing of animals to also erase a spiritual deficit. But then at the same time, after the animal is killed, we still consume the meat as a family anyway. But then that convention of killing the animal, instead of just allowing the animal to die, then adding the fire to the dead body of the animal to release the energy of the animal through the ritual use of fire, that new convention of killing the animal, releasing the energy, the explosion of energy right away, capturing that explosion, utilizing that energy for a specific purpose to eradicate a deficit if you're doing something in a positive way, and then developing that relationship with the spirit of the animal so that they can work with you just like they worked with you when they were on earth. These are different conventions. But we need to really understand what we're talking about. We're talking about animal sacrifice, Aforeboa, in the hoodoo tradition, for example, of Vodou or Juju in North America, the Gola Kisi tradition, Gullah Geechee traditions, and so forth, Gregory traditions, Bambara traditions. Many times we did not have this luxury of just continuing to do what we were doing on the continent all along. Escape from plantation, got out into the forest, got out into the swamps, the wilderness, and so forth, and we began to reestablish ourselves, reestablish our culture from the earth mother herself, learning about the plant life and mineral life, the flora and fauna of this region of Asaseafua, the earth mother, attuning to the different plant life, mineral life, and animal life, and living in harmony with these different expressions of life in this region of the earth mother. And we began to reestablish our culture, and we've continued to do that. Some of our people engage Aforeboa, animal sacrifice, some of our people do not. Many people engage in animal sacrifice on at least a monthly basis and don't even realize. Every time you kill an insect, you just sacrifice an animal. The white Nile Spring, through sleight of hand, will tell you, oh, well, that's not an animal, that's just an insect. Of course, that's foolish. Animal just means an animated being. So in the Akhan language, the term for animal is aboa, but then the term for insect is aboa, and wa just means diminutive, meaning small, so it means a wa of small, or diminutive, aboa, a small animal. So aboa means animal, aboa means small animal. Every time you step on an ant or kill a mosquito or a fly or whatever, you just killed a living entity that had eyes and ears and a heart and everything else. You just killed it because you just didn't like it around. You just sacrificed an animal. How many animals have you sacrificed? Say, oh, well, that's just small. It's a life that had a spirit that was placed in its physical body by the creator and creatress. You killed it because you didn't like it. So you forget about those, but then somebody says something about animal sacrifice and ancestral religion. You're like, oh, I can't get into that. I'm not into animal sacrifice. You've sacrificed many, many, many animals in your life. Every time you stepped on a bug, you sacrificed an animal. For example, even to give that in context, you see a spider in the house in the Akhan tradition, whether it's on the continent or here in North America. People still remember this spider is sacred. It's an animal totem. This is Anansiwa. You don't kill spiders. You capture them and you put them out the window. A cricket gets in the house. This is a sacred animal totem of the Abosom, the Nehem. So then you capture that cricket and you put it out the window. You don't kill it. Even if you see a mouse, for example, we gave the example in the past, lived in a place a number of years ago in another state where it was a new development, gut rehab, brand new construction, brand new walls and windows and appliances and everything else. But part of the building, apparently they didn't get to on the other side of the building. So it turned out the place had a mouse problem. And after a while, dealing with this mouse problem, the Unsumanfo informed us, because of the way they would show up at specific junctures, at specific critical times in life, they said that mice are messengers from Asaseafua, the Earth Mother, and they come from the Earth Mother to bring messages at specific times, at specific junctures. And we noticed that was happening. A number of years later, over a decade later, we came in contact with some information about the Akhan tradition, and one of the divination systems in the Akhan tradition is called mouse divination amongst the Baule Akhan in Ivory Coast. And they utilize mice in a specific shrine, and they put a mouse in this specific shrine, and they put some sticks in the shrine and let the mouse go up inside the little shrine and move the sticks around. And based on the way the mouse moves the sticks around, that mouse communicates messages from the spirit realm. And when they asked the Akhan diviners about this form of mouse divination and why they utilize this, the Akhan diviners said that the reason why that takes place is that back in the past, mice used to be able to speak. And a spiritualist went out into the forest and captured a mouse and brought them back into the village and utilized them in this kind of shrine. And the reason for that is because the mice were messengers of Aforeboa, the Earth Mother, and they would bring messages from the ancestresses and ancestors, and this is why they use mouse divination. So the exact same thing that the ancestresses and ancestors, the Nsamanto of Akwamuman, Akwamu Nation in North America, told us prior to learning anything about our Akhan tradition, what they told us a number of years ago, a decade later, we find the confirmation in the Akhan tradition that there is mouse divination, specifically because we say mice come from Aforeboa, and they are messengers of Aforeboa, the Earth Mother, to bring those messages from her and the ancestresses and ancestors to the people. And this is why they're utilizing that sacred way. So you're not going to kill a mouse like that. You try to capture them, free them, and so forth, or just move out of the place or do something. But we're not just killing animals just randomly because we just don't like them. Whether it's a small animal, aboa, or a large animal, aboa, that's just an example to put this in context. Because we're, through sleight of hand, we make foolish decisions. We say, well, we're against animal sacrifice, but we're killing insects every day. Or killing other, smaller animals on a regular basis with no problem. So we need to understand exactly what we're doing. So we wanted to put all of this information in context. The nature of shrines, the nature of food offerings, as well as animal offerings, the convention of animal offerings and how it's developed, and how the culture contains that and facilitates it, but it's not dependent upon that, the ritual consumption of fire through cooking, but also the ritual consumption and use of fire through the release of energy that's contained within the body of the animal once fire is added to the animal and the fire is released. The energy is released, no different than when you cook some food and the energy is released and the smell can be picked up, and somebody walking by the house can smell the food 20 feet away. When you put fire to the physical body of the animal, the energy that was within the blood of the animal and contained within the abatum, the melanin of the animal, is released. And that energy, once released through that ritual use of fire, can be captured and utilized in a specific fashion. So all these different things are going on when we're talking about animal sacrifice. All right, so we want to have a few questions on the phone line, and it looks like we have some comments in the chat room. All right, and there was a question, are we going to do a NHOMA or a book regarding health? So yes, that will be coming. We have our Akwamu, our whole life journal already, but we are going to do something regarding health. So for the people who came in a little bit later, before we get to the phone calls, it's about 15 minutes left in the broadcast. So if you would like to listen to the broadcast beyond 11:30, we're probably going to go beyond 11:30, but if we just happen to go into overtime, it will cut off at 11:30. If you're on the phone line before 11:30, you get on the phone line before 11:30. If it cuts off at 11:30, then when it cuts off at 11:30, you'll still be able to hear. Only the people on the phone line will be able to hear. Everybody who's just listening via the net will be automatically cut off at 11:30. So if you want to get on the phone line, it's 657-383-0635, 657-383-0635, and you got about 14 minutes to call in. For the people who cannot stay on, we did announce at the beginning of the show, yesterday we released a video. If you check out the video, it's on our YouTube page. We also placed it on Facebook. Odwirafo ne Odwiraman, self-employment option for Afurakani Afuraitkaitnit people. So, of course, when we talk about Odwiraman, the purified nation, Afuraitkaitnit people in the Western Hemisphere, talking about nation building, restoration, part of that process is to be able to meet the needs of our people. We are all collectively, as Afuraitkaitnit people, African black people in the Western Hemisphere, Odwiraman, the purified nation in the Western Hemisphere. If we're going to function collectively and engage the process of nation building effectively, then we must meet the immediate needs of our people. As a group, we need to be able to meet those needs. One of the most pressing needs is economic development. So we have an option, and we should have an option, and we do, whereby any of our people, any Afuraitkaitnit person, male or female, who needs to generate income immediately, become self-employed immediately, notwithstanding your prior work history, you can become a distributor, Odwirafo, of our books. We have 19 books out. We have more books coming out as well. When you become a distributor, you are working for yourself. You're not working for us. You are an independent entrepreneur working for yourself. You simply purchase the books from us wholesale, and then you sell them to your friends, family, co-workers, people you interface with, retail. The wholesale price, we just changed the structure yesterday. We did the video yesterday, the new video yesterday, and we updated the distributor information document yesterday. All of that is on the NHOMA page on our website, the publications page. The new wholesale price is 35% off. So, for example, our books range between $8 and $11. So many of them are $9 and $10. We have two of them that are $8. One of them is $11, but all the other ones are either $9 or $10. So, for example, if you're purchasing wholesale, the books that were $10, you pay $6.50, 65% of the price. You got 35% off. You purchase them for $6.50, and then you sell them for $10, and you make that balance. So the wholesale prices and the retail prices are on the distributor information document. The instructions on how to become a distributor, Odwirafo, are in the document. Right there on the web page is the list of the books where you can purchase them at the wholesale price. Right there on the web page, on the NHOMA page, the publications page on the website. Because we went previously, it was 30% off. Now we made them 35% off, and that extra 5% is what helps to cover the shipping cost. So the shipping is automatically calculated for you, and the minimum order is 10 books. So you can order more than 10 books. You can order any mix of titles that you would like. The minimum order is 10 books. So some people may order 10 copies of the Kukutuntun, the Ancestral Jurisdiction. That book retails for $10. You buying 10 of them, that's $6.50 times 10, which is $65, and then you would sell them, meaning you would generate $100. You would, $35 just by sharing the book. When people see the front cover of the book and it says Jesus never existed, Muhammad never existed, Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael, Moses, Solomon, Sheba, Menelik, Allah, Yahweh never existed, they see all of that, and it's only $10. They'll pay $10 to get that, to see what's in that book, because it's very inexpensive and the information is explosive and corrected. So the books sell themselves. So you may buy 10 copies of that book, or one copy of 10 of the books, or 2 of each, or whatever it is. But you go directly to the website, download the distributor information document. You can make your purchase right there on the website at the discounted 35% off price, and you can start immediately as an entrepreneur, generating income for yourself in the community, serving the community in a positive capacity, giving them information. We mentioned the Akwamu Whole Life Journal is one of our books, talking about natural health, talking about overcoming marijuana addiction, talking about a number of different things with regard to melanin and natural health and truthstory and culture. From a foundational perspective, when people study that information, an introductory perspective, transform their ajwini, their mind. They start to engage in constructive behavior, start cutting out the self-destructive behavior. We've had individuals who have stopped smoking, stopped drinking, and so forth, just because they're studying the work. Of course, that saves them money. They're no longer giving the white offspring money to kill themselves. They're saving that money and utilizing it for themselves and their family. their health is improving. They impact other people who want to change their diets as well and stop engaging in self-destructive practices that's poisoning their bodies and their systems and maintaining ill health. Transforms their minds. They start being more disciplined, exercising their emotional output in a harmonious fashion, not being depressed and stressed or explosively angry, negatively affecting people in their sphere of awareness. Start regulating themselves in a harmonious way, not suppressing themselves, but not being overly explosive, being balanced. Transforming their minds, transforming their behavior, transforming their approach to life, transforming their relationship with their spouse, their children, their families, and those they interact with. And then they are naturally inclined towards nation building, restoration. They start engaging in activities, wanting to become entrepreneurial, develop home schools, develop businesses, whatever it is, just by studying information that is truthful, no quade truth, transforms the mind, begins to transform the behavior, and that transforms the community. So you giving this information out, selling this information at a very inexpensive price, $8 to $11, it helps to transform their lives and the lives of their children, families, and people they're connected with. And at the same time that it's helping them and the larger community, it's also helping you to become independent as an entrepreneur serving the Black community. It's a win-win situation all the way around. So you can start that process immediately. We can't talk about and continue to talk about nation building and people giving speeches about nation building, but you go to them and say, well, you're talking about nation building. What can your nation do with regard to assisting us to become independent? Do you have any option for that? And they have nothing but purchase my book and come to my $20 lecture. And then maybe one day we'll establish something. Well, we already have something. The ebooks of all 19 of our books are free downloads for people who don't have any funds at all. They can study every book that we have. Those who would like to purchase softcover versions or support the work, they can do that as well. But we have that option where we can employ Black men and Black women instantaneously wherever they exist in the world, just by connecting and engaging that process. So we have a mechanism in place. And of course, for those who are not necessarily interested in being distributors, but you support the work, of course, you can support the work by purchasing one or more of our books. Any order of 10 books or more is automatically 30% off. The first 5 books are 20% off. So the first 5 books, like the Kuku Tuntun we mentioned, as well as the UBEN-HYENG, the Okra Complex and Soul of Akanfo, and a couple other books, Modern Achi, Divine Law and Divine Hate. The first 5 books are, and also Afuraitkaitnit, the origin of the term Africa. The first 5 books are $40. That's 20% off. So you can purchase those first 5 books for $40. We have that deal. Any order of 10 books or more is 30% off. Whether it's 10 books, 11, 12, or the whole 19-book set, automatically 30% off. But any order of 10 books or more is automatically 30% off. The 19-book set in total is $125 for 19, about a little less than $7 per book. So, and yet I say we thank individuals who have been sharing the information, but if you'd like to support the work we're doing, you want this information to continue to get out, please support the soft cover versions of our books. That's the way we generate funds, give these free presentations, conferences. Every time we do an event in different cities, we do not charge anybody, our people, to come in to hear us present. We don't charge an admissions fee, ever. And when people come, we give away a free copy of one of our books to everyone who attends. We've given away over 800 books. We want to continue that process, and we're going to continue that process next week when we have our conference here in D.C., the Ancestral Religious Reversion Conference at Chief Sign. So in order for us to continue that process, we need your support when you're purchasing our books, or if you would like to become a distributor that supports the work we're doing as well. So we're going to get on the phone line right quick. Okay, Michelle, on the phone line, number 7244. You had a question or a comment?
Well, brother, I just want to start off by saying this is the second time that I've heard your voice. And I was actually, I want to say hotel, peace, greetings, alafia. Thank you for the inspirational wisdom that you give out, brother. This is the second time I've heard you talk. The first time I think you were actually going in speaking about tell me if I'm saying this right, the Akuba, the
right,
fertility doll.
Yes.
Okay, and that was great explanation and wonderful way to expound on that, man. And like I said, just having brothers and also sisters, family, African family, such as yourself, that are even talking about venerating ancestors, that are talking about asking questions about the Orisha or the Netaru or the forces of nature that are connected with our ancestors, asking about, the animals that should be sacrificed, the offerings that this is something very important. And as you're talking about the religious, going back the other way to the things that are successful for us as Africans. Like I said, brother, heart to heart, thank you for what you are doing, and even with that, and that's without, you exploding on the information that you just gave, even when you're going places and you're giving out books. This is work that definitely needs to be done, and even the quote unquote conscious community or liberated, a lot of liberated Africans, they just feeling the need to move and being physical first. And from what I'm understanding, even through my teacher, Brother Uncle Banu, he just came out with his book, Remembering Our Seer. And, I'm pretty sure just as the books you name, it basically goes in talking about different rituals, talking about colors, dates, not dates, but days associated with different Netaru or different Orisha or these different energies that we're talking about controlling and actually working with, so we can manifest these things on the physical realm. And like I said, man, I'm just happy to be here, check out your show, and I'm not sure, I want to extend to you and the family, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the Akwamu Festival, but this is the second year we're having this, and this is last year we did a bull. And it is like a community sacrificing, which we should be celebrating these things, but it's done down in Gainesville, Florida. And my brother Tahir RBG, he and the Joshe Temple down there, they and us inside Peninsula as well, we are participating in this. And this, like I said, this is the second year. But I'm definitely knowing that when we do these things, we should be gaining momentum. But I wanted to ask you a question as it relates to a video that I was seeing today, brother. And it actually showed white people, some white guys that actually, I guess they were cutting the meat of a horse. And, just talking about sacrifice, because I look at the white people, they do this all the time. As they go deer hunting, as they do a lot of things that we would call savage, but they will cut the throat. They will handle the blood, and with us as black people, we say, ugh, we probably wouldn't be able to do that. But I ask that question as it relates to the momentum that the Wazungu or the white people have. And even as it relates to what I've seen, with that, would you think that had anything to do? Because I do know that blood is an outlet or the conduit for us to connect with the spiritual world. So does that kind of show like some type of control, being that they are the ones with the majority of the slaughterhouses, that they are the ones doing a lot of the sacrificing, even how they kill us inside on the streets, inside the law system. So I'm wondering, is this like showing us like how juju or how particle magic works, you know, even for our adversity.
Well, first of all, may I say I appreciate you, you know, supporting the work and appreciate your comments. And I remember seeing, I think I remember seeing like a advertisement maybe of the event, maybe on Facebook or something like that.
Yes, sir.
The event in Florida. I think. Well, is that in the summertime or when is that?
It's in May. It's in May.
Oh, it's in May? Okay. I appreciate that. Yeah, so I'll check that out.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So what they're doing is, the key is the first thing you said with regard to us, you know, them, you know, killing animals and dealing with blood and everything else, and then our people saying, ooh, I don't want to have anything to do with that. That's the key. The key is not necessarily that they're engaged in these ritual practices, because they could kill animals every single day, all day long. They will never be able to communicate with the Orisha, never communicate with the Abosom, the Vodou, Ntoru, and so forth, the spiritually cultivated ancestors and ancestors. The only spirits they can communicate with are their criminal, deceased, drunk relatives and non-relatives who are the same spiritually degenerate entities who were repelled from the ancestral realm, who are hanging around earthbound, crackheads and you know, prostitutes and criminals and everything else that were like that when they were alive, transient, homeless type individuals when they were alive, and criminal when they were alive, and when they make their transition, they're the same weak kind of spirit. However, because we're doing absolutely nothing, it appears that what they're doing is something. So if someone is standing somewhere and a very frail, you know, hungry, homeless person walks up to the person and punches them in the mouth and they start bleeding, well, it looks like the homeless person is strong, only because the big muscular person didn't do anything. But if he decided to punch the homeless, frail person in the mouth and break his face, you know what I'm saying, we'll see who's really the strong person. But if you're doing absolutely nothing, you could be full of potential. But if you don't utilize it, you might as well be a paraplegic. And that's how they have us culturally as paraplegics. We can look around, we can see, we can talk, but we're not getting up and doing anything. So we're just drinking in information, but we're culturally and spiritually paraplegic. Once we break free from that paralysis and actually engage our culture, we crush them. And we have that precedent that has been established. We talk about Florida, the Gullah Wars that took place in Florida, they misnomer the Seminole Wars and so forth, waging war against the entire United States Army and defeating them and forcing the Civil War to come into being and forcing the end of enslavement in North America, because we waged war and killed the whites in our spring consistently. Okumfo Yao, Nat Turner, Okumfo Kwabena, Denmark Vesey, Nana Abena Araminta, Harriet Tubman, waging war against the whites in our spring, killing the whites in our spring, and forcing them to say, listen, if we don't stop, they're going to kill all of us. We need to move towards abolition. We're being forced into that direction. We have to move towards repatriation, the American Colonization Society establishing Liberia, Sierra Leone, and so forth, even though they had nefarious purposes, but they knew that if they didn't stop the whole enslavement process, we were going to massacre them all, because we were getting more bold and more, emboldened and strengthened. Listening to our ancestresses and ancestors, as Nana Abena Araminta Harriet Tubman said, listening to her ancestresses and ancestors. Okumfo Yao, Nat Turner, he was born on Yao Thursday. He was a child of the Abosom Yao, who is Heru and Akhan, and, in ancient Kemet. Yao is the divinity called Heru in ancient Kemet, and he has the title Yao in Kemet as well. He's Shango in the Yoruba tradition. He's, Hedioso in Vodun. He's a child of Nana Yao. He's born on the third day of Yao Da. When he talks about the spirit told him to move, we know what spirit told him. He was Akhan. He had Akhan ancestry. We know specifically which Abosom guided him to wage war and massacre the whites in our spring. And there were many of those ancestresses and ancestors being born, being raised up to wage war against these crackers. So when we're not doing anything, the weakest individual, if you're laying down asleep, a 3-year-old could go get a gun out the closet and find it and blow your brains out, and you just got taken out by a 3-year-old. It's not because the 3-year-old is stronger than you and more intelligent than you and more calculating and so forth. You fell asleep, and the weaker one and the less intelligent one took over the house. So when we wake up, we will crush those who are weaker and inferior to us when we engage our ancestral religious practices. So the key is they can do all kinds of ritual, but no divinities will ever communicate with them. But if we're communicating with nothing, we're not getting that kind of guidance and that kind of direction. So our behavior reflects a lack of direction, a lack of guidance, not listening to our own okra, the ori inu, the ka, we're not listening to that. We're just going along with what we've been conditioned to go along with. But when we get the direction from the abosom and insamanfo and the guidance and the empowerment on how to utilize that power effectively to eradicate our enemies and embolden ourselves, then things will transform overnight, and they are already transformed. Just by virtue of the fact that you're talking about this is the second year, you all are down there doing, the work down there, and we're talking about these conferences and everything else. People are awakening to this reality. We talked about the Ancestral Religious Community as opposed to the so-called, quote-unquote, conscious community. When we talk about AARU, the Ancestral Religious Community, that inherent within that title is a proper understanding of Pan-Africanism from a rooted perspective, a proper understanding of nationalism, a proper understanding of divine law, divine hate, and so forth. So people are starting to awaken all over the place. So it's just a matter of time.
Hey, brother, I want to ask you a question, and I don't know, with you being a practitioner, being an oracle, would you feel, or do you feel like the momentum that we are gaining, we're having spiritual devotion to engaging with our ancient African spiritual tradition, do you feel like you can see where we are genuinely improving with integrity, with African integrity, restored back to us in order to get this thing, or do you see like the non-moving or the frailty still within that body? Or, but I even for myself, even with me seeing brothers like you, it is good to see that, and I do feel like we're getting momentum. But what do you feel about that, brother?
Oh no, definitely, it's momentum, and it's moving. The trajectory is in the right direction, and it's moving forward, and it's moving up, and it's exploding in a real sense. On one hand, of course, the whites and offspring are always seeking to try to control, but they weren't able to do so effectively, and we've broken back out, and people are waking up all over the place. Now, the only thing that kind of slowed some people down is the first thing they run into are Afurakani people, whether on the continent or here, who are brainwashed or criminals, misrepresenting ancestral religion, trying to control people within their pseudo-practice of ancestral religion and their lack of understanding of ancestral religion, but at the same time floating titles and, so-called rankings and everything else. But, of course, we are teaching the real thing. And to hell with all these fake titles. You Negroes, if you don't know what you're talking about, we don't care how long you've been in the tradition, how many times you've been to the continent, all that means absolutely nothing. We go directly from our direct blood ancestresses and ancestors. They are the ones who guide what we do. If anybody says anything that does not comport with that, then to hell with those Negroes. We don't care how old you are, what you've been doing, where you've been. If you don't comport with what our people are teaching us, then you get out the way, or you're going to be moved out the way. So this is where people are at, finally. And that's why the momentum is shifting in a positive direction and the velocity is increasing.
Thank you, brother. Hey, man. Hey, I got much love for you, brother. The heart that you just put into saying those very words and the spirit and I don't even know your name, but I just know your voice. I know this is the second time I heard you, and I knew, like, from the first time, because I had gotten an akuba from a white guy, ironically, and I wanted to kind of, even ask you the relevance of, me, because I'm a cable guy, and I had gone up into the mountains, and I saw that statue at his house, and it looked like the older one. And so with me even being able to gain more insight on what that meant or what the ancestors might have been saying or conveying, because I know there had to have been a message in that for me, but even tapping into the oracle, having people around as you encouraged me, and even also my teacher, my Nusubati, my Baba, brother uncle, he has made it possible for me to be able to be at your door and expound with you on these topics and have eager desire for venerating the ancestors and venerating the things that have been lost, brother. And like I say, my heart goes out to you and also the family that works with you. And I look to, to learn more with you and, to engage more, with the community. If I could, brother, one more question before you kick me off.
Okay.
Because I'm going to say I have studied a lot of, different African cultures, but right now specifically I am in the Kemetic school of thought. And I do know that inside Kemetic tradition, when us as Africans, we attempt to lift up this, venerate these ancestors of this time, not saying that we're not venerating any other of our ancestors, but to me, am I right for saying that this is when our ancestors were at the zenith of controlling their juju, or, being in line with these, with our ancient African traditional spiritual practices and actually putting those in place and manifesting on the physical realm? Does that show the African, and I do know that in Kemet, like, people want to say that they are just Egyptians, but we should understand that those were collective Africans that came up from a Pan-African mind throughout collective parts of, Africa to come and build inside Kemet. So can we say that that is one of the zeniths or the main zenith that we could see when our ancestors were actually developing this spiritual this spiritual strongness or the strength that we have?
Well, it is definitely one of them, and it's true. Like, when we did a broadcast called Committee Feku, we're talking about the ancestral societies within Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit Ancestral Religion. So, for example, you have a Egbe in the Yoruba tradition, like the Egbe Egungun or the Egbe Yemojao, the Egbe Ogun. People are children of those different Orisha or part of those societies. They carry the energy of those societies. So there's subgroups in the Yoruba tradition to maintain the, practices and the rituals of those specific divinities within the community. In the Akhan tradition, they're called a Feku, a group within the society. So whites and offspring would call them secret societies, but we know they're people of the same energetic complex, of the same patriclan, matriclan, specific Abosom govern them, and we carry certain energy complexes, and we preserve that line to the Abosom within the community. So what we're talking about is within every ancestral religious expression, in reality, there must be a Feku or Egbe for the Kemeti and Kaniti, the Egyptian and Nubian ancestresses and ancestors. There should be an Egbe Kemeti or Kemeti Feku in the Akhan tradition or in the Vodun tradition, because number one, we're the same people, just like some of our people migrate from Mississippi, some moved to Chicago. They're the same people living in two different places. They're not like two different groups, obviously, and it's the exact same thing. Our people moving from ancient Kanat, which is Nubia, into Kemet, then some moving to west, central, south, Afuraka, Afuraikai, and remaining in those areas, and then some of us getting snatched up and forced over here. We're the same group. Number one, genetically as well as culturally and everything else. Number two, because some of them have reincarnated since and lived in West Afuraitkaitnit or Central or South, and then reincarnated again and lived in North, Central, South America, the Caribbean during enslavement. But some have not incarnated since then, so they still speak the same dialect they spoke when they were living. And we invoke them in that dialect as well as using the Yoruba dialect or the Akhan dialect or the Congo dialect or whatever, because we communicate them directly with the way that they were communicating the last time that they were here. They also have a responsibility to direct us to the specific ancestral blood circle of which we are an incarnate part, because they have that capacity. They are our direct ancestors and ancestors. They see where we lost our connection during this, on the surface, during this quote-unquote sojourn in the Western Hemisphere. So it's part of their responsibility to, number one, realign us to the specific clan. Are we Basa? Are we Akhan? Are we Eve? Are we Fong? We used to live as part of that community. They can help direct us and remind us of which specific group and put people in front of us who are part of that group here in the Western Hemisphere so we can reconnect on that level. But then they also show us the foundation of our morality, our moral rectitude, our consciousness, our moral consciousness rooted in Ma'al, the male divinity Ma'al, and the female divinity Ma'at. Because they, as you said, they express that on a very, high level or a normal level during that time. And that, even, in the pre-dynastic and dynastic times, that's the most recent expression. Because, of course, it goes back tens of thousands of years before that in Kannat, Nubi, as well as Kemet. So that was one of the more recent expressions over the past, 5, 6, 7,000 years of that divine expression of Ma'al and Ma'at in the world. So, we venerate them for a number of different reasons. Of course, they're part of our blood circle. We ourselves within the same great divine body. So, they feed us just like the water system in your body is like the ancestral realm. So when cells develop, they're nourished and rejuvenated and cleansed by the water within the body. When the cell dies, the water leaves the cell, joins with the water within the organ systems, and then they reconstitute themselves or are reborn back into new cells. The ancestors are like that water within the great divine body of the Supreme Being. They nourish and rejuvenate us, cleanse us, purify us. So as we operate throughout the course of, every day, we can have a pure perspective and realign our thoughts, intentions, and actions. And of course, those ancient ones, they have the capacity and the responsibility to direct us like that. So we have a capacity and responsibility to connect with.
Wow. Dua Natel, brother. Thank you. Thank you very much, brother. Dua Natel, and much love to you. Like I said, thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for your extensive knowledge and your, I can tell you're very devoted, brother. So like I said, thank you very much. If I had to say it a million times, keep up the good work. And if I could, brother, how could I? My name is Equanif Shai Imhotep on Facebook. Are you on Facebook, brother?
Yes, I'm on Facebook. You can type in Odwirafo, ODWIRAF as in free, Odwirafo, or Kwesi Akhan, and you connect with me. Either way, the page will pop up.
Okay. All right. I'm going to send you a friend request sometime soon here, brother. And if you don't mind me asking, where did you say you were out of D.C., the D.C. area?
Yeah, we're based in D.C.
Okay. All right, man. Well, much love to you, man. Thank you for the work that you're doing. Keep on inspiring us, man, and inspiring the family, brother. Keep that fire burning, man. Ron and Tiff. Thank you.
Merate, we really appreciate it.
All right.
Okay. So we have a few more minutes before the blog talk will automatically cut off. So I'm going to take one more call, and more than likely, hold on one second. Yeah, we're going to take one more call, and more than likely after that call, that'll be the last call because they will cut off automatically without sending a notification. They'll just cut off.
Don't put it there. Don't put it, baby. Okay, please. Can I have? Let me get mine. Give me the plate.
0911.
I need you to do that. Okay. Come on. Okay.
0911. You had a question or comment?
Wait, espérate. Don't put that stuff all over the pizza. Don't do that.
Okay, let me get to another one right quick. Just give me a second. Okay, Michiawo number 7784. You had a question or comment?
Greetings. My name is Ashima Shanakat. And hi, what's up? And I just want to say I've been listening to you for a while as well, listening to your lectures. And first off, what I say, you definitely are the epitome of the warrior and of the king and of everything the black woman, the Afurakani, Akwamu person has been looking for. So, what I say?
Oh, yeah, I said that. We appreciate that.
I'm reading your book, Kamet Henanukuro, The Black Nation and Divinity.
Yes.
And the manifestation of every symbol has definitely come to pass. I'm trying to take my time and choose my words carefully. But specifically, you talk about, and I want to make sure I'm pronouncing it right, feel free to correct me, Shat and Duat, Book of the Underworld, the 12th hour of the night. I can just say that from my encounters with Spirit and the Akhan and, just being the energy in every life force, that I honestly believe this is the time. For people who are Christian, if you read your Bible, everything has come true. But my argument now to people is, where did your Bible come from? And just giving them some context. I feel like we're missing so much context because we have this identity crisis, and I think you refer to it as is it the what did you call it?
You're talking about the soul, the Okra?
Yes. So when you talk about the Okra complex, can you explain that a little bit more to me?
Yes, so the Okra, and the term in the Akhan language for the soul, divine consciousness, the deity, dwells in the head region. The male term is Kra, or the female term is Pra or Okra, sometimes Okrawa, different dialects. Mm-hmm. It's the same as the Ka and Kayet, the male and female versions of the term in ancient Kemet, which is the soul, even though sometimes they'll represent that as the spirit, but it's really the soul dwelling in the head region, which is actually a divinity that guides us throughout the course of our lives. It's called the Oru, in the Yoruba tradition, the inner head, the inner Ori. So that's the divinity that first will manifest very often as a pull in the head region towards certain thoughts, intentions, actions, behaviors that are harmonious for you, but then you have a push away from other things that you shouldn't be doing. So you can feel the pull in your head going one way, and if you disobey that and go in a different direction and things don't work out, you'll recall that, my head or the spiritual force in my head was pulling me in one direction, I was going in a different direction. And the more you engage that divinity, then the divinity will show itself to you if it hasn't already done so. Sometimes through the form of a Chinegua, sacred animal totem, sometimes in the form of male or female divinity. It just depends. But it's a force in nature. It's an abosom or Orisha Vodou in and of itself, a colleague of the other abosom. But it's like your spirit's brain. It's like you have a body, you have a smaller body in your head that regulates all the other functions in the body. That's the brain, the little organ in the head that regulates all the other organs. In your spirit body, your Sapu or your Sumsum. In the head region of the spirit body, you have a smaller body, which is the Okra, the Ka, the Kayet, in the head region. That's why they show the two arms and the hands going up. Within that space is the head.
Yeah.
And that's what they put it on top of the head for the stomach.
Is Onipa also a term that could be referred, or, could be associated?
Say it again. You sounded a little muffled when you said that.
I said, is Onipa also a term that can be associated with the Okra complex?
Well, Onipa is the term for person, like an individual, a human being. Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, human being. Onipa Dria means tree, and Onipa means person. So Onipa Dria means the person tree, meaning the physical body is akin to a tree. And then, and in fact, the word Oni or Eni means I. Uni means person. So just like when somebody says all eyes on me, they're saying all people look at me. So the relationship between the I, Oni, and the Uni, meaning person, and Onipa means a good individual, because our nature is Pa, meaning good. So it's the same as in ancient Kemet when they say the tears fell from the eye of Ra and human beings came into existence. That's what it's talking about.
I experienced I've had an experience. What do we need to do to phone this up? Just want me to Facebook this.
Can you say that one more time?
I said, what would you like for me to do if the phone cuts off? Do you want me to just Facebook you? Because you said we had a limited amount of time before it automatically cuts off.
Right. Yeah, you can email me through Facebook, and we did a broadcast called Onipa, the origins of the human being, talking about the origin of the creation of the human being, talking about Kanum and the female divinity Heket and Ra and Ra'et and all of that. To, give a proper perspective of the coming into being of the human being, and also we show the connection between the term Onipa, Oni, and the I in ancient Kemet of Ra giving birth to the human being.
Okay. All right. I'll make sure that I will do it. And then my last comment/question is, how they talk about the lost city of Atlantis, and they've basically tried to, put a white face to every Orisha by feeding it to our children through Disney, and other cartoons and books. Do you think that this is the time where, the lost city of Atlantis is now being recovered, and Yemoja and, all of the Orisha are coming back to restore order?
Well, like you said, they put that kind of information out. For example, when they talk about Atlantis or Mu, or that's on Earth, I'm trying to say that civilizations originally were all white people, but they got wiped out in the water, so the little black slaves were left, and they just went up into Kemet and continued the white civilization after the white people started everything, which is nonsense. They'll put them in the sky and say they came from, the stars. They were blind. They set up civilization, then they left, and the niggas were left to take over. So it's always trying to take agency away from our people. Our people didn't come from spaceships. Neither did the White Nile Spring. And the whole Mu and Atlantis thing is a myth. The root of that myth comes from the book, the text called The Tale of the Shipwrecked Sailor in ancient Kemet. Going back to the so-called the tale of the shipwrecked sailor.
Oh, okay.
And you can Google that. You'll see different translations of it. The tale of the shipwrecked sailor, talking about going back to the Middle Period over 4,000 years ago, and it's a sailor from Kemet, and his crew, the boat is destroyed, and then he washes up upon an island down in what they call Punt, which is really the region of Eritrea and parts of, southeast Afurakai, and there's a great serpent that comes, a bearded serpent, and he's the master, the Nehem, the master of the land of Punt. And he talks about what happened on that island, and he protects the little sailor. And then a few months later, the ships from Kemet come, and the sailor says, "Thank you for protecting me, and I'm going to tell the king about your island, and we're going to send you all this different stuff." But then after he sails away from the island, the island that was, governed by this great serpent, it went down under the water and disappeared under the waves. So this great civilization that was governed by, originally this serpent, he said he had 74 other serpents that were with him, so it was 75 serpents, which is akin to the what they call the litany of Ra, the 75 names of Ra and so forth. This great civilization, and it was a paradise, and they were talking about the paradise and how they had all the food and everything you could possibly want on this sacred island, and the island was called the Island of the Ka, or the Apenin Ka, and the sacred serpents were living there.
Spell that for me real quick, please. You said the Island of the Ka?
Right. So when you look at the translations, they'll call it the Island of the Ka.
Can you spell that, please?
Yes. It's they'll call it the Isle of the Ka. But inside that text, the tale of the shipwrecked sailor, when you look in our book, Afuraitkaitnit, the origin of the term Africa, in part 3, we talk about that section, and we show the Medutu, the actual hieroglyphs that spell out what they're calling the Island of the Ka, or the Isle of the Ka, and it's Apenin Ka, A-U, Pun, which is P-N, and then the symbol for the N, and then the Ka. So it's Apenin Ka, or the island of the Ka. But it's a sacred island with divinities on the island. It's a paradise. It's in south of Kemet. It's a great civilization, and then it disappears under the waves, never to be seen again. And so that's where they get that story from. And you find it show up in India, and then other people are repeating it. The Greeks are repeating it, and so forth. But at the same time, so that's where the story comes from. But as far as the restoration, resurrection, and purification of our culture, the whole story about Sar, Set, and Heru, we did a document on that, talking about, Alsar being Kanitiu, Kinti, Amentiu, the first of the Westerners. He died, goes into the Western portion, but then he's resurrected. So the great black one, the great black nation is resurrected in the West. That whole thing is connected to what's going on with our people. So this surge of energy towards purification and restoration of our ancestral culture, that's simply guided by the Abo.
So when they talk about the Anunnaki, and then you look at the dollar and you see the Anu something sign or symbolism, I know I've heard you say before that concept of extraterrestrial beings is fallacious, but I don't know, I guess my spirit, since I've had so many family members transition, that belief of, one day the mothership is coming back for me, it's present. Do you think that's just completely, what I mean? Like, how do we balance the spiritual component with it, with, the stories and the parables and then the reality?
Well, on one hand, of course, they're going to use, they're going to steal all symbols and everything else. It's like you're talking about, the back of the dollar with the pyramid. They're going to steal the pyramid. They're going to steal the eye of Heru, eye of Alsar, and everything else. They're going to have, the falcon or the eagle on the front, and that's what Heru, the falcon symbol. They're going to steal everything they have, but they're always going to try to misrepresent the culture. Instead of these deities, forces in nature that animate the sun, animate the black substance of space, animate the earth, mother, rivers, and so forth, they want to turn them into entities that they can control and talk about and create a narrative for them that they came from somewhere else in a tin can flying around and all of that. So there's no physical, tin can flying around. When people see, we have spirit possession, spirit communication, but these are not, they're not extraterrestrial. Ancestors have been communicating with our people forever. Deity's been communicating with our people forever. Sometimes even when people see, for example, the term Ak or Aku, meaning illuminated one, shining one, a title for stars, but also a title of ancestresses and ancestors. When people have a vibrant aura, they can have that vibrant aura where it's luminous when it's in the dark. Pouring libation in a shrine, you see a luminous figure. You can see their aura is very vibrant. Where somebody is kind of thick, their aura is kind of dim, and not very vibrant.
Yeah, I've seen it a lot. Like right before a lot of my family members transition, they get this peace, they get this glow, and it's almost like, restoration of, whatever conflict they had throughout their lifetime. And then another component of it is beautiful is that whole concept of 7 being the end of generational curse. There's been a series of births and deaths, I'm sure in all families, but particularly mine, where it does lead me to believe, based on Dr. His name is Nikita Ramani, sure I missed the piece, but, he is a professor. He's an Africana Studies professor at Nebraska University, and he was formerly at James Madison University. And so, when he would teach African numerology, he would show you all the symbolism, behind each figure. And, 7 being that number of completion, I don't know. It's just the energy of like, the concept of your Kundalini rising and this Christ consciousness, which is, metaphysical, but, still very spiritual.
Well, what they're going to do, they're always trying to find a way, to twist some things around and truncate some things. Like we did a broadcast on Heru, Yeshu. We know about Asar Set and Heru. Then people don't often know about Amen, Mut, and Kain. Right. So Amen and Mut giving birth to Kain-Su, and he's a hawk-headed divinity connected with the moon, just like Heru is a hawk-headed divinity connected with the sun and the earth and everything else. So Kain-Su, Neferhetep, Heru, and Heru, son of Asar Set. If you saw them standing side by side, they're 2 hawk-headed divinities. They look identical, except one has a crescent moon on his head and the other one has a red and white crown. But Kain-Su is the divine healer. He's where they get the whole Nazarene and Ptah and all of that stuff from. And a lot of this other information, even the title Kheri Seshta. Kheri means chief king, he was above, leader. Seshta means...
I didn't catch that. Kheri means what?
Kheri, like Heri, means he who was above, leader, chief, king. Just like Herit is the female version of that, chieftainess, she who was above. So Kheri means that, and Seshta means that which is hidden or secret or sacred. So that's a title of priests and priestesses, Kheri Seshta, but also can be a title of Heru, the chief, king, he who is above, and of that which is sacred, Kheri Seshta. Kheri Seshta was corrupted into Kheri Seshtos and Kherishtos and Christos and Christ. So the white offspring didn't understand the connection. That's a title of a priest class, but it doesn't have anything to do with the term haras in Quebec, meaning mummy. That's the term also for crust, like encrusted, like a mummy that becomes encrusted or hardened. It's also the ordinal term crystal. So there's no such thing as even Christ consciousness, because there was no Jesus, there was no Yeshua, there was no Yeshua. They're taking different things and trying to merge them to still fit their narrative, and taking certain concepts and titles from our culture and sticking them into their narrative to embolden their narrative. And when we look back to the actual divinity, the actual Abosom, Orisha, and Bodu, and so forth, it's all laid out for us. So we can, check out some of the, look at the Kuku Tuntun, the ancestral jurisdiction. We start going into some details about that. And then the broadcast in relationship to the Kuku Tuntun.
Okay, well, Madrasa. All right.
Okay, so we appreciate
Thank you. I got some research to do. How's that?
Okay, so we All right, so we're going to end it here because they will cut off at any minute. If you have any questions or comments, just hit us up on Facebook or on our regular email address for that. And again, we appreciate you tuning in. Yebeshia Bio. We will meet again. That's it.